Number 13's mom is here.
Okay, we are at 9:03, so we're going to get started. At this time, I'll call to order and ask for the invitations that could be you this morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, we'll stand.
Let's pray. Well, Father, as we've gathered to do some planning in case of hurricanes this year, Lord, we understand that we can't do anything about the storms themselves. We can't redirect them. We can't dissipate them. Only you can do that, Lord. So the best we can do is to make plans to prepare our community before they come, to be with the community during, and particularly be with the community afterwards, Lord. So give us wisdom as we've gathered today to be able to come up with some concrete ideas and plans as we look into this new hurricane season. And yet, Lord, we would be even so bold to ask that, knowing that you can redirect and you can dissipate these storms, that you'll put your arms of protection not only around our county, but around our entire state, Lord. And Lord, we know that you are a God who answers prayer. So thank you for your presence, and thank you for hearing our prayer today. In your name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I have the roll call, please?
District 1, Commissioner Oakley.
Here.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Here.
District 4, Commissioner Yeager.
Here.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Here.
District 3, Chairman Starkey.
Here. Okay, so our topics for discussion today: emergency management and preparedness for 2025 hurricane season. It's already given me heart palpitations. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. And again, I want to thank the team members for being here today. As we all know, that the response to storms is multifaceted. Not only the team members in this room that play a critical role to it, but plenty of outside agencies, partners, private sector, not-for-profits, et cetera, all play a role in this. But today, with the official start of the hurricane season being weeks away, we thought it would be appropriate for the board to have a conversation about hurricane preparedness. And so the team will provide really a brief recap of some of the what's that happened. More importantly, as our invocation kind of talks about planning, talk about how we pivoted sometimes from our plans, because we know things never really go to plan. And then what we've learned from that to go forward with even better plans in the future. Looking forward to having the board weigh in on your perspective on various elements of the operation or things that maybe you heard from your constituents or things that you find important. So I'm just very proud here to introduce Director Fossa. Pasco County has a great reputation in the emergency management field, often called upon to help out other counties, and so that experience is great. We were able to bring that to bear. So Director Fossa, I will turn the presentation over to you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Basically, what we have done in EM is we want to give you guys a high-level ICS 101 about what the incident command structure is like and what we will be, I should have gone with agenda first. Darn, I thought you were going to do that. So for our agenda today, we're going to do the incident command system and the elected officials' role. We're going to do key takeaways and how we are evolving for future events. And I will say we did learn a lot this last storm season between Helene and Milton. You're going to hear from media relations and communications and customer service, public works, sheltering, 911, fire rescue, from comfort station in our pods, solid waste, and then building construction services. And then I'll conclude with a brief PA reimbursement on where we're sitting money-wise, where these pots of money are actually being used from, and we will cover all of that. So basically, ICS, Incident Command System, it's a common organizational structure, and it's thoroughly accepted in the state of Florida and throughout the United States. I could leave here and go to New York, and we're interchangeable. Everybody has the same information, same acronyms, same verbiage. And it's management of on-scene resources during incidents. So instead of it being just chaos when you get on, say you get on a fire scene, everybody's just running around, there's a reporting structure, and it's a hierarchy. So orders come down to the field fulfills those obligations, and then whatever happened, responses come back up to the hierarchy, and then they work through it and try to evaluate other ways, or do we complete our mission? It's used in all kinds of incidents. It could be a very small incident from a car wreck, all the way up to a hurricane like we experienced last year. And it's also used for events, both planned and unplanned. Gasparilla Parade, prime example, uses the incident command system, and we partake heavily with them in that system. Sun and Fun Fly-In in Lakeland, same way, they use the incident command system. I send team members over there to help them during those events. And it can be scaled to size of the event. Incident command could have 3 people, or it could have 43 people in it. But it always is a structured command. The chain of command refers to the orderly command and hierarchy within the incident management. So like I was saying, it flows from the little guy at the bottom all the way up to the incident commander, and also can expand horizontally for section chiefs. The unity of command basically means that each individual reports to only one designated supervisor. And that's one of the biggest things that we look at during a hurricane event. Words can get crossed, and one employee can be told the same thing 4 different ways, and from 4 different people. So that's why we try to keep it that they have one person that they report to. The principles, it clarifies reporting relationships, it eliminates confusion caused by conflicting instructions, and enables the incident managers at all levels to direct the actions of their personnel under their supervision, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be fire rescue, whether it be sheltering, whether it be pod and comfort stations. They all have one supervisor that they report to. So this structure right here is basically how it reports within the administration. So basically, the county commissioners, which are our elected officials, basically go to Mike, the county administrator. He is part of the executive policy group, which in turn tunes up the county administrator, emergency management, the district school board, the health department, the Pasco sheriff, and the county attorney. So as the elected officials are getting information from the community, they can turn around and feed it to the county administrator. He brings it to the executive policy group, and then we make decisions off of that, and then it funnels down to me, being the IC, and then we push it to whatever branch we think it needs to go to. The battle rhythm, this is basically every day during an activation is the rhythm that we follow. At 7 o'clock, we have a weather call with the NWS and NOAA. 8 o'clock, we have a command and general staff meeting. That's usually the IC with all the section chiefs, and we discuss, what happened overnight, what are our plans today, what are you gonna implement, what are we gonna change? And then at 9 o'clock, all that information comes to the executive policy group, and we discuss it there. And then we know what resources we need to get. We know if we need to start getting ready to order an evacuation. Are we gonna open shelters? Does the sheriff need to start upstaffing their personnel? And then at 10:30, all the information that has been done comes back to me at IC, and I go back to my folks, and we have the county coordination call. And that's all the other departments, public works, utilities, solid waste. And we make that phone call to say, hey, what do you guys need? Are you guys prepared? Do you need additional resources? Do we need additional manpower? And then at 11:15 is our state call. And that's usually done with the Florida Department of Emergency Management, and it's usually done with Kevin Guthrie or Ian Gudicelli, who is a CERT chief. And all 67 counties are on this call. And they will brief out, they'll give us a weather update. They will give us, hey, if you need resources, order them now, because in 48 hours, all resource movement is gonna stop. So we have that phone call, and then we report back usually our unmet needs. I need ice, I need, water, I need food, I need additional personnel for shelters. That call transitions at 11 o'clock. Once that call is over at 13:30, which is just something new that we actually implemented last year, the elected officials call. That gives you guys the chance to voice your opinions, voice your concerns, see what you need, anything you want us to change or do or look at, and we work it through there. And then at 14:30 is the stakeholders call, briefing, I should say. And that includes all the municipalities, all our NGOs, and that's basically me reporting out on what we're doing, where we're heading, and what is going on. And then at the end, we usually field questions. And then at 4 o'clock, it's something called a SITREP. It's a situation report. It's basically prepared and disseminated out, and that basically says where we are right now at that time. What do we have going? What's moving parts and items like that. And then at 5 o'clock, we have another CERT call, the evening call. We get another weather update. They brief us out. They'll talk, hey, Andy, you ordered 25 Hinkleman pens. We can only get you 14 right now. The other 11 are on order. We'll get them to you. And then at 7 o'clock, the incident action plan is delivered. And what that is the incident action plan is what is our plan for that, usually at night, that night, if we're doing 24 hours ops. If it's not, it's usually for the next morning at 7 a.m. And that's basically our Bible that says, here's the incident objectives, here's all the branches, here's all the equipment, here's the medical plan, here's the safety plan, and it's all encompassed in that IAP. And that's written every day, both morning and night, if we're doing 24 hours. And then also at 7 o'clock, we have our evening weather call. And that's usually starting to narrow down the counties that will be affected from the storm or whatever event that might be going on. So the role of the elected officials, it delegates authority for the county administrator and the incident commander to make decisions. You guys empower Mike and myself to say, hey, we trust you guys can start making decisions on your own. It activates specific legal authorities. It helps get the local state of emergency going. If we need to do an evacuation order, other proactive measures, whether it be we want to stop liquor sales after a storm for recovery, or we want to enact
increase that.
or do we want to enact curfews? So we bring all this information to you. You either say yes or no, and then Jeff will draft up a document, and it gets signed by the board chair or whoever may be the one signing it, and then we move forward with that. It provides support and guidance to the county administrator. By doing that, you're empowering Mike to come to me and the incident commander, and then we'll pass it through the EOC, whatever might need to be done or don't want to be done. You guys actively participate in the elected officials call. That's the most important call of the day when it comes to county administration. That's the things that we get to hear, what your guys' thoughts are, concerns, what do you want, what you don't want. And then it also, your role is to share official county messaging to ensure we're all speaking with one voice. Every storm, I don't care how perfect the county is, I don't care how disjointed the county is. If we don't share the same message, it's going to cause confusion and chaos within the county, and especially to our citizens and residents, or customers.
Commissioner Waitman has a question.
Yes, sir.
So, thanks for coming, Mr. Spina.
Yes.
Mr. Spina's here from Councilman in City of Zephyr Hills.
Is there anyone else?
So I don't see in the program, what's our communication strategy or plan to communicate with our cities, our partner cities? Because they'll come up against it, need support, resources, and I don't recall last year hearing them really at all. Maybe I missed it on the storm calls, but I think we need to have some level of dialogue between, I'm sure there is city managers or other elected colleagues, so.
They're on that same call.
Yeah, so the stakeholder briefing is the biggest one. They're always on there. And then I have numerous conversations with Billy Poe, back when Chief Walters was there. We communicate with the city of San Ann, Chief Fitch with Newport Richey, Chief Policastri with Port Richey, and we always communicate back and forth. And if they have resources or needs, we ask them to put it in WebEOC, It'll come in, it'll hit the board with our logistics section, and they'll look at it one of three ways. Can we just get it in-house? Can we buy it from a Home Depot, or do I need to go to the state for a resource request to get it from the state? But those lines of communications are always open with them.
So you have to make that request on their behalf?
Yes.
Or is that discount? Okay, all right.
So, the executive policy group, that was the other slide I showed you. They're basically here, we're here for resource support, school closures, shelter openings, and evacuation timelines. This ensures transparency throughout the process. And the collaboration established and maintains Pasco County government as a trusted source of information for the community. So we're the very high-level, 50,000-foot group that is the ones that are sitting there discussing, all right, I spoke with Hillsborough, I spoke with Pinellas, they're gonna order their evacuations in 72 hours, which in turns, if they're gonna evacuate in 72 hours, I gotta evacuate in 48 hours. Because if they evacuate before us, we're gridlocked. It happened, a prime example was Irma, when 75 was basically shut down because of all the traffic trying to move north, and we got the ice hockey rink for a shelter of last resort. So we work collaboratively with that, and then I report back to the executive policy group. The decision-making process, it's based on a lot of data sets. It's not just me and the executive policy group saying, okay, we're gonna do this now. We base it on the National Hurricane Center. I have phone conversations with them. They give us updates that, some that are privy, that go out in the weather bulletin, and some that aren't. They'll tell us extra things like, hey, that surge is gonna hit, and when it's gonna hit, it's gonna come in fast and hard. The National Weather Service, NOAA, Florida Division of Emergency Management, their meteorology, they are top-notch when it comes to weather briefings. They actually break it down to the county, timing, wind speeds, and they've been very, very accurate over these last few seasons. HurrEvac modeling, that's a program that we have that basically the storm will be plotted out on the computer, and we can do what-if events. We can do worst-case scenarios. We can do what if it decides to turn and go left to Albuquerque? Are we gonna get any effects off of that? So we're able to use that program, and it gives us storm surge modeling. It gives us flood inundation. It's a very good program to use. And historical events and past events. What's happened in the past? We learned a very big lesson this last year with Milton. Places flooded that never flooded before. So now we know in past history that it's gonna help me, but it's also gonna help stormwater. It's gonna help public works. It's gonna help solid waste. So we know that, hey, we're gonna get water in these places, but we got it once and it could happen again. And then what are our surrounding counties doing? Are they actually planning an evac, or are they just sitting back and waiting? I know the counties to the north of us, they didn't even want to plan evacuations until we had a conversation saying, hey, you look what you're going to get here. And they finally said, okay, maybe we should evacuate. So we communicate all together, especially the Tampa Bay region, Region 6, I should say, which is Polk, Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Hernando. And we all communicate together. So we got a very good structure going on with that. Pasco County Emergency Management is very fortunate to have a trusted and valuable partner with the District School Board of Pasco County. Over the last 2 years, our relationship with them has been fantastic. They come to the table ready to go. We've been working with the new administration, with their school security. So we know opening a shelter is our priority to keep people safe. But we also know after the storm, getting the shelters closed is a priority also, so we can get the kids back to school into normalcy. But we won't do that until we know it's safe, when we know we have open roads and there's no threats from debris or anything like that. And that is one little sticking point that we have with the school board, because they think we can just open the schools now and everybody can go back to normalcy. Well, you can't, number one, if you don't have power, Number two, if you had trees all over the roads, the buses can't get through. So we want to make sure that we have clear paths to the school and they are safe to enter. And then FEMA reimbursement, one of the biggest things. So the moment that we activate, we start tracking numbers and monies. So that way we have accurate counts. It's important for the county to be good stewards of being fiscally responsible in emergency events, because I've seen other counties. I'll give you a prime example. Hurricane Michael in Bay County, they got I can't remember the exact amount. It was an astronomical amount of money. But 2 years later, that money got deobligated, and they had to pay all that money back. And that was because of poor fiscal management. They didn't have receipts. They didn't have the items they needed to pass the FEMA audit, so they were deobligated.
I think some of their government kind of fell a little apart. A lot of
Yes,
people
that
moved,
included.
They lost their homes.
So we don't want that here in Pasco County, because we have big monies coming to us now, which I'll discuss later on. But we track it so we know we're eligible for reimbursement. Will some things FEMA say will not be reimbursable? Yes, unfortunately that happens. But I would say 90% of the time that we apply for reimbursement, we've always been approved. We've really never had anything deobligated or no, this is not going to be acceptable. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Media and Communications.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. Tambry Lane, Media Relations and Communications. We are very proud, our small and mighty team, as I like to call them, to be a trusted source for life safety information in Pasco. It's something that I'm very proud of the team. They do that very well. So we are going to take a look here at our traditional media coverage. So this is your television, radio, and online from these traditional outlets. And you can see here that we pushed out 95 news releases and handled more than 250 media contacts during Helene and Milton last year. So that resulted in I can't see that from that far, so I'm going to open up my slides here. 477 million was our audience over traditional media outlets during those two storms. That breaks down to 17 million on television, over 6 million on radio, and 454 online. And what that means, basically, is that we had $11 million in publicity. And Pasco County was mentioned in traditional media outlets almost 4,000 times. So next, we'll take a look at our website, mypasco.net. Essentially, what this shows you is that nearly 30% of all traffic to our website in 2024 was during the 3-week period of heavy messaging for the storms. So this peak here that you see on the screen coincides directly with when we activated for Milton on October 6th. So for social media, we message on several platforms. Here on this slide, we're focusing just on Facebook as an example. So we posted more than 150 times in September and October. And this is what's interesting. When we're messaging, it's working and people are paying attention. We continually let people know that this is where you get the trusted information. You can see that we reached over 300% more people during those 2 months than we did before the storm, the 2 months preceding the storm. And we saw a nearly 600% increase in content interaction. What does that mean? They liked it, they shared it, they commented on it, they clicked on the link. So this is messaging that people are taking action on, and it means something. It's meaningful. Our social media platforms, in case you're wondering, are two-way communication tools. Here are just a few of our customers' comments. During activations, we review all these comments. We also review direct messages. Customers tend to also send us direct messages on our Facebook platform, for example, and then we respond as appropriate. After the storms hit, we continue messaging to our more than 514,000 followers across all of the county's platforms. And really what we're trying to do is highlight the recovery work of everyone else in the room, all the other county departments. So you can see some of the highlights here. We've got Pasco Hope, we've got Reseeding Maggie Valley, the pop-up permitting, all of that. So we're continuing to message to show the community how we're helping and to continue to provide them ways to reach out to us if they need support. So as Andy mentioned, and Mike alluded to, 2024 required some pretty innovative approaches to messaging, which we learned some great lessons from, and we're going to continue using forward. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention our amazing GIS team. They've been a collaborative partner for us for years. We create maps and tools showing things like debris collection, our interactive evacuation zones. To our knowledge, it's one of the only ones in the area, I believe, where you can actually zoom right into your particular house and figure out what zone you're in, which is really important when people are being asked to leave. If you take a look at the chart on the bottom right corner of the screen, this shows the spikes in visitors to our evacuation map. They are directly related to the day that we push out messaging. In fact, in 2024, we had so many hits to the servers, they crashed. Just telling you that the messaging works, people pay attention. We also used, thanks to Joanna, some LED trucks. We were able to put slides and audio. So these LED trucks are like digital billboards driving around neighborhoods sharing life safety messaging. In fact, video of one of the trucks going through a neighborhood went viral because people thought it was such an interesting way to get the messaging out. We also, as you all know, had to create some flyers to present complicated information about really unprecedented situations for us in Pasco in a very clear and concise way. And this was all thanks to the graphic designer position that we were able to recently add onto the team. Then I want to talk about our website pop-up. I'm sure any of you that went to our website during the storm saw that when you went to the homepage, there was a pop-up. So we had challenged our team and our website vendor to create this one-stop pop-up on our website for all emergency resources. The feedback was incredible from our customers, from internally as well. Commissioner Waitman, to your point, we also have a joint information center embedded into the EOC where we have PIOs from other cities. Trang is gracious enough to lend us a PIO, so they're working with us too. They get to see the information in real time. This website pop-up was a place to put all of this information. Not only did our vendor step up and create this, but they thought it was such a good example of how to blend creativity, content, and functionality that they submitted it for an award on our behalf, and we won a gold award for that. So we're really proud of that, and of course we will continue to use that moving forward. Very quickly, I'm going to go through some customer service information for you. During September and October of last year, customer service answered 66,000 calls. We usually answer 17,500 a month. To give you an example there of the volume. Oh, sorry, how do I go back? There we go. Our average monthly call abandon rate is just 3%. So if you look at that, we were not able to answer 13% of all the calls in September, and we missed 29% of calls in October. So essentially, the volume of the storms far surpasses our ability to quickly answer them. We also see a pretty big spike in online chats. You can go to our website, you can chat with customer service if you don't want to pick up the phone. We handled nearly 8,000 in September and October. We usually handle about 1,700 a month. So what did we learn?
A question on that?
Of course, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the chats,
Yes.
are we using AI or can we get to use an AI?
That is an excellent question, and the answer is we are about to.
Okay.
We are working on it right now. Yeah, that's going to be really helpful, and it's nice because it's going to be tailored to the website, so all the information on the website that's updated will be included in the chats.
It'll be a nice, makes for a nice clean messaging.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. We're finding a lot of ways to use it in communications, so thank you for that. Moving forward, we're working to make sure that other Pasco customer service team members, meaning team members who usually interact with our customers, are trained to help answer calls during emergencies. And then we'll incorporate those team members into our activation roster. So we're not just relying on Lisa's core team, to go 40 days, which is really not sustainable. And then finally, we'll make data-driven decisions about when to open the Resident Information Center. We find that sometimes, we open up on a Saturday, we stay open late, and a lot of those calls coming in are blue sky day calls, not emergency related. So we'll be making data-driven decisions about that.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
So before we go to the next thing, I want to bring up something that the board voted on many years ago when we look at billboards. we're doing a transition from electronic billboards or from regular billboards to electronic. And they always pushed that they would help us with messaging during storms, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
When we did our negotiations, we negotiated very strong, and we didn't get a lot of transition. Do you think if we were able to have more billboards, especially on the 19 corridor electronic, to put messaging out there, do you think that would help getting the word out, if people could see it driving up and down?
The answer is emphatically yes. I can show you some crazy statistics of how well our digital billboards work when we're sharing messaging, especially if we're driving them to our website. We can see a direct correlation between putting the message up and the traffic to our webpage.
Yeah, and I was just, when we were talking about the digital LED trucks, I was thinking, just in those senior communities, those low-lying areas, the one thing I found out was they don't know to go to the webpage. You know what I'm saying? Like, their phone is their the worst enemy. So like maybe driving those LED trucks through those, through those neighborhoods to get the word out, because
Yeah.
if we weren't knocking on doors or getting calls at 9:30 at night, hey, can you get to this place, these people aren't evacuated, I think that would be life-saving to some of these seniors.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, and also it's worth noting that it's very important that we message to everyone in the county in the way they want to be messaged to, and to your point,
To meet
it's
people
not
where
always
they're
going to be the same. So
Yeah.
we have, we have the customer service center with the phone number. We have, for our media partners, we're open 24 hours with a direct line that they can call our public information officers. We have all different social media platforms for all different age ranges. So and of course, our webpage. So if you are looking for information, it is not hard to find.
Just as an example, there was this lady, and it was a language barrier thing, and they were like, she's not doing anything, there's stuff all over her yard, whatever. And I knew a little bit of Spanish, so I told her, I was like, a storm is coming, like, you need to move your stuff, and she had no clue. So just making sure too that it's offered in other languages.
Yes, and we
I
do
think is
Spanish
important.
messaging. When we have a news conference, for example, we bring in a sign language interpreter, so we do sign language. But yeah, so our life safety information
Yeah.
is pushed out in both languages. But yes, to your point, they would have to know to go to the social media platforms to see it. And I will say we have an excellent relationship with Telemundo. And if you just humor me for one moment, I will say thank you to Andy. We, by far, have the most accessible EOC in the region, meaning our media partners get on-demand interviews with Andy, Mike, any one of our subject matter experts. Rarely are other agencies offering that type of opportunity, so they can get in and get the information they need. We offer interviews in Spanish on demand. So,
Building on what these two are saying, I think it's smart to park those LED trucks on 19 ahead of the storm and direct people to places where they can get information. Like send them to, I don't know if we send them to our app, send them to our website, but do it ahead of time.
yeah.
So they know where to go ahead of time. It's also good. Do we have the ability to send out the text messages?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and so, but we have to, where do we gather those phone numbers?
So, so it's through Everbridge. They have the client database for every county throughout the United States with cell phone numbers, email addresses, whatever it may be. The issue is with Everbridge is the messaging that we send out has to be either proactive in response to imminent danger, reactive to imminent danger, or basically, I can't send a message out saying, hey, go to Pasco County, www.mypasco.net, and go there. The feds frown on that. We've had a couple of instances where other counties use their Everbridge for sporting events, saying, hey, this is going on, oh yeah, and be here, and you get fined, you can lose your license.
And you should.
So, but we're very proactive with ours. We do have a complete database. There are little flaws with it, and what I'm meaning by flaws is, we'll send out an Everbridge message like for a test. And somebody that used to live in Florida that now lives in New York is still getting that message. Because we don't know they moved out of the state, so they contact us and then we remove them. But we were very proactive during this storm, past storm season, sending out messages
Yeah, I think
for
I did.
evacuations and
Yeah.
sheltering and items like that.
All right.
And as
any
commissioners, when you're
questions?
speaking with your constituents, let them know that we have a lot of different ways to get information out to them. When we put out a news release, it's not just going to our media partners, it's going to HOAs, it's going to the chambers, it's going to all of our PIOs in the county and other agencies. So, it's really important that they know that it's not just going to one place. They can sign up for these things.
Seth has a question.
Are the text messages that go out, are they bilingual?
They can be bilingual. Usually we just send them out in English though.
Yeah.
They have the ability to be bilingual.
We did do Spanish and English, Sarah, right? Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question, more of information than a question. On the east side in District 1, being as large as it is, all the cities on the east side are in my district. I'm very much aware of what's going on in that area, born and raised there. You can tell me about a place and I can tell you how to get there and what's happening there, because I've been there so long. So, but I'm in reach with Zephyr Hills, Dade City, St. Anne, St. Leo, all the cities in the east side. My office is reaching out to them to see what we can do to help. They're also on those calls with Andy Foss and with their EOC. When those are happening, they're sitting there listening too. So, but then we talk and there's issues about pumps and I know I'm supposed to go through Kabbalah, but I'd go direct to Andy. So I just saved 2 conversations. So just go direct to Andy at times. But things worked out very well and I stay in tune with what's going on and what times and try to be ahead of the game on a lot of that. So it's really important that we had good communications during that time. Can we change that today? If it happened again right today, what would be different? We have gone through the experience of knowing what it's like because of how bad it was. So we have that experience to know what to move quicker in the system than we did before, because we never had flooding like this before. So, but there's certain things that, if we had that flood today, we're still gonna have flooding in some of the same areas. There's nothing changed right now that changes the way the floodwaters are gonna go. Only thing that I know that could change is if we got started on Morningside Road in Dade City, if we took down that barrier of that and make that water flow from Hickory Hill and the hospital, it would flow on out to the river earlier and get away from us. But after it comes back into Dade City, it would still come back, so. But
Commissioner Oakley mentions that he called Andy. Now, do you want us to continue, I mean,
For
you want
problem-
every single call, Mike?
No,
I mean,
no,
you'll be on the
for-
phone
for-
all day long.
For problem items like we have pumps down or something like that, I don't mind having a phone call. But I don't have the time to sit there and have 30, 45-minute conversations with all between the meetings and other items that are going on. But if it's a quick, like Commissioner Oakley does, hey, Andy, the pump at Otis Allen Road is down again. All right, sir, and I turn around, I'll tell Barrett, and then 15 minutes later, it's gone.
they're all quick calls, they're not long calls. I give him what I'm calling him about, and he can take it from there. But it gets to the source quicker if I go through Andy. And not only is Andy piled up with all the information, so is Mike.
Yeah, and I think, if I can add, part of the reason we did the elected officials briefing too was to kind of afford opportunity too to improve communications. And we really felt that was a great thing that we did, because you can also, if it's not imminent, if it's not, we can talk about those things in a different environment, and you've got the executive leadership team there that's controlling a lot of the county-owned resources that we can make things happen. So I felt it worked really well during the last storm.
You know, we have constituents
Everything
calling
moved
us and texting us about issues. They're not texting you or calling you or Andy, so we can bring those up to your attention.
I was going to add on, that also really the liaison desk is the go-between. When you can't get a hold of the leadership team, that's why we have a liaison desk. We can take the messaging, we can get it to the pastor or in the room.
Yeah.
Ralph, we have you on speed dial, no
Yep.
worries. We bonded over her.
And that's the same with all of our municipalities as well, too. They
are you done, Tambry?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Yes,
I'd like to say that my communications that have, sometimes it needed to be on the mic. Kevin and John, Larry, Bradford, JP, I had great communication with everybody, and when I did have trouble, I went to Ralph, and sometimes if that still wasn't working, we inside, but I would say the communication that allows us to reach out to where we need to, even Tammy, it's very helpful for us to get things done that don't work for the meeting time itself, so
And
I think it's gone very well.
I want to just piggyback on what he said also, especially when it came to buses and things like that. Kathy Pearson was on speed dial as well and handled things immediately. And that was like something that didn't need to go to Mike, hey, we need the busing extended, or we need go Pasco to pick up this community, whatever. So you were amazing and very responsive, and every issue I had, I took to you and it was handled. So just an FYI.
Madam Chairman,
yes.
so, hearing that comment, the incident command system is designed so that you have a central point of contact and that staff is not getting multiple directions. So it is best if the commission goes through either Mike
Or
or
Ralph.
That's not
Or even
what
Ralph, to be quite honest
or
with you.
Andy.
Even with
Yeah.
busing?
Like I said, you know, it gets chaotic, and to Jeff's point, you know, we've managed to make it work. I think we've just come into a particular battle rhythm. Technically speaking, yes. I mean, you know, single points of contact, but then again, may not be available.
If it's
may not
something
be-
like a bus, like needing pickup at a mobile home community, would you rather that go to you or Ralph, or just write to her, something on that scale?
I think if you're asking me, we would probably want to try to channel it through who are you? Through Ralph. What are we pointing at, Ralph? Oh, you're distracting me here. So, you know, I think we just need to use judgment, because there will be times where it does make sense. But I think officially, yes, coming through me or through Ralph is probably the right thing to do. And if it's urgent and it can't wait for these elected official type calls, you know, I won't fault you for reaching out if there was really an urgent matter. So I would say if it could wait, you know, or it's not time sensitive, talk to me, Ralph, about it, and or save it for our elected officials call. But if it is a matter of urgency, if it is a matter of something that can't wait, we have good relationships with our assistant county administrators in the organization. We all sit and we talk, and that information gets back channeled. It did not create, and this was probably the most chaotic storm that we've ever had. Really didn't create a whole lot of chaos. We managed to make it work. So I think the preference is keep it through the chain, unless you really feel that it's crazy and you can't get a hold of us.
Commissioner Mariano.
Yeah, let me just give you a good example. There was one time out there I was picking up, this one lady was like very distressed with a big fire that was going on the boatyard, and she's like stuck out the day before. I see her the next day, and she's talking about how she's got some refrigerated food sitting out in the front yard that the people picking up the trash didn't pick it up, so it's sitting there, it's stunk up crazy. So what do? I go down to pick the stuff up, I got loaded in the truck. Now, do I need to call Mike for that? I don't think so. Do I need to call Ralph for that? I don't think so. I called John Batista. and he got me to a grappling truck I could go. He communicated with them, so I could set it, get it picked up, and get out of there rather than comes a stench somewhere else. And so I think we've got to use that judgment, because you got 5 county commissioners and you got one liaison, he's gonna be tied up sometime.
Yep.
And I don't need to bother you with that.
That's what I'm
So
saying,
you gotta give us the flexibility. It may be a great system, and we can use it at the appropriate times, but if you get those instances that are going on, we gotta be able to make those decisions of what we think we need to go do for our people.
And again, I think I'm fine. We've exercised good judgment, and as long as we continue to exercise good judgment, that I think it won't be a problem. I'll let you know if it becomes a problem.
You know, one of my biggest stress points, I haven't seen the whole thing here, was all the debris sitting on the side of the streets between storms that we thought was gonna blow into the water. But we learned a lot in this last storm, because not one thing moved. Nothing moved. I don't know if it's because it was wet. I don't know why. It was a shocker that between Helene and Milton, all those piles of stuff in the front yards just stayed right there. So I'll be calmer about that next time, because so worried that the one street into Gulf Harbors was gonna get blocked and no one would be able to go in and
Wait a
out.
second, we're not having another hurricane, so we don't.
That's right, that's right.
I think
I'm
Mr.
still putting
Plisko, when
my-
he gets to,
Still
when he,
put my house back together.
I just
Yes.
want to add something. One of the best things or decisions made by Andy and Mike and the Ockers, I guess, is when they picked John Power to do the pickup
Oh, yeah,
in
that was
Pasco
good.
County. He'd done it before.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have picked a person with the right expertise in doing something. He'd done it before, and it made it a lot better for everybody, I think.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You know,
Then we'll
Kevin,
get on to Public Works.
John, the whole team for the pickup was great. The coordination that was done with our local providers, the local guys who were picking up the stuff did a phenomenal job. Now, Commissioner Stark, there's a bunch of trash that's in the canal still,
Yeah,
so,
I think they threw it in there. That's what I heard.
well, anyway, so picking that stuff up out of the canal is so much more cumbersome.
Yeah.
I think we were right to be excited about getting it done as quick as we did, because I think it saved a lot. Maybe some of the stuff stayed, and a lot of it did, but any bit that was in that canal was a big issue. I mean, refrigerators, chairs, tables, we still haven't picked it all up yet.
I do have my dock table is in the water with
Okay.
some of my furniture.
So, no, I think it's good to keep, the way that time was coming, I think the team handled it fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
All right, let's get on to Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mr. Cabral. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Barrett Doe. I serve as the Assistant Director for the Public Works Department, and excited to share our portion here, Public Works. We'll just jump right into it. We'll try to. Oh, that way, okay. All right, thank you, Ralph. So, we've all seen this, but we thought it would be a good idea to just show again our watersheds and flow paths. We all became very familiar with this during the storms. You could see the areas on the east side that we became familiar with, Duck Lake, as well as, some areas on the west side as well. Again, we thought this was important to show. We know you've all seen this, but this is the 100-year floodplain. Unfortunately, some of these areas that you see here did experience flooding to this level, and then some. So, moving on, what happened? This is Curly Road, adaption and action. So, I am actually proud to announce that all of the roads that were blown out are now open, so traffic can now come and go. Just working on a few punch list items, and then those projects will be closed out. But we had major roads blown out on the east side, unprecedented, very costly. What we're going to do, though, in the future is monitor these areas and monitor the stormwater watersheds associated with the areas that got blown out. We have I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
have a question. Should we replace those with concrete? Does concrete wash out? Like,
So what we've done is a lot of the pipes that were under these roads is what really caused the problem. It was a bottleneck, and they were older infrastructure, maybe some corrugated pipe, but a big part of the cost was to actually replace the stormwater infrastructure as well. So we
and
wanted
that's
to.
been done?
Yes, that's done. So we had to start there and then build the road back up. So no, these roads are in good shape. But as I said, as now we know that these areas could become a problem area in the future, we're going to keep a special eye on these locations. So we went through a lot of sandbags. It was very busy for us. We went through close to 400,000, and this is for all of the storms combined, okay? Proud to announce, though, that we did not run out of sandbags. We had plenty to spare, and as Director Fossa mentioned, we did receive some web EOC requests from our municipal friends, and we were able to help them out as well. The same can be said with sand totals. Shout out to our technical services division. This is a map, one of 7 maps that they've created for our different sandbag sites. One of the things we identified is that we needed to improve our efficiency. As you all know, Maggie Valley is what you see here. Our sandbag site can become very busy.
Yeah.
So we've established some checkpoints, locations for staging, and things we're doing in the future, improving our staffing there. We are looking into getting a sandbagging machine, having some sandbags already pre-bagged. Yep, working on that, so we're excited there. We've actually had a lot of really great community input too. We've had an Eagle Scout project comes to mind. Just decided for their final project, came in and created some sandbag fillers for us. So it was very cool to see that. Yeah. Another thing I want to point out is, and kind of give our technical services ops team and solid waste a plug for, is that we had to adapt quickly to the DDMS site set up here as well. So our staff, in conjunction with contractors, Kevin and his team, we were able to still maintain the sandbag site while still having the DDMS site where the debris was temporarily stored, all kind of going at the same time. A lot of traffic coming and going, not to mention just the regular neighborhood traffic there. So we consider that definitely a success. And, you know, we're able to adapt when challenges like that come before us. So we all know that the storms were unprecedented, and we had to ask the state for several different assets to help us out. And I'll kind of get into the why in a second here, but 140 pump trucks. These are the 4,000, 5,000 gallon tanker trucks, I guess you could say, that came and helped us out in areas. I think my battery went dead, but it's okay. Here, talk loud. Thanks, Kevin. So especially on the east side of the county, we have a lot of closed basins, and where in other areas we can hook up our pumps and lay flat hose, we have natural outfalls in areas where water can drain naturally. Unfortunately, specifically on the east side of the county, a lot of closed basins, a lot of bowls, so we had to call upon the state to come in with these tanker trucks to help us move that water to one of these 3 discharge locations I have at the bottom. I will say that of the other items, the traffic cones, barricades, light towers, etc., we are working with the state on moving forward and with other vendors and filling in those gaps where we needed some of those resources and some of that inventory to help out. Moving forward, our strategy, the goal is to abate flooding. We understand that we cannot eliminate it, but there are several tactics we can follow to help ensure that we do our best to try to abate the flooding. So continuing our maintenance plans, investing in infrastructure, developing and updating our watershed management plans. We have a lot of data from this past hurricane season, and we're going to go ahead and implement that and consider that in our stormwater master plan, which will be coming to you in July. And we have 2 workshops coming up in June, the 3rd and the 10th. So moving forward, what have we done since our last storm season? We've filled 24 positions. Each of these positions is going to have a role, whether it be at the sandbag site, in the EOC. Everyone coming aboard Public Works knows that, you know, when we're activated, they are part of the team. We have a new pump, and as I said, we're working with the state to acquire more pumps, more hoses. We've replenished our sandbags, and this is key. We've gone ahead and we've bought a lot of material in an effort to rebuild roads to make them temporarily passable should we have any other major blowouts in the future. Will we have to have contractors or, you know, we might have to have someone else come in after the fact, but at least with all of this material, we can at least make sure that our key roads, some of our key roads can remain passable. We're purchasing Connex boxes and 5 storage sheds. We're going to keep these at our sandbag sites. Just areas we've identified that it can improve our efficiency. We're working on purchasing trailers. This is going to help out with our emergency response friends as well as Pasco sheriffs. We were charged in helping set up some command centers and blocking, of course, with our barricades blocking roads as the rivers started to rise. So this equipment will help us be more efficient. Asking for a new vac truck, some more full-time employees. Again, we've identified these are some areas that can improve our process. Again, Stormwater Master Plan, we've been working with our consultant, and we are considering the data from this past storm season. And again, there are 2 workshops coming up on that, June 3rd and June 10th, I believe, and then we are bringing the Stormwater Master Plan to you all in a July meeting. This was huge for us. The coordination is continuing with other county departments, regulatory agencies, municipal partners. I feel like we've broken down a lot of silos with our municipal friends. We've had several meetings with their staff. It's gone very well. You know, we've identified each other's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, definitely some threats there. But leveraging these relationships to improve, you know, not just improve our knowledge of the watersheds and certain flooding areas, we're tapping into their institutional knowledge as well. We have also worked with several HOAs and CDDs, worked with some of you commissioners on this, and that's going very well. As some of you recall, during the hurricanes, we identified that there were certain privately owned assets that were compromised or in need of maintenance. We've identified those, and again, those are privately maintained by HOAs or CDDs, but we've started those conversations with the HOAs and CDDs. Those are going well, and they're in the process of bringing all of their infrastructure up to where it needs to be before the storm season. More training, of course, is great for our team. We're doing that now, and as I said, we're filling in gaps where state resources were needed. Again, moving ahead, this was mentioned, we have a new normal established for areas that could or will flood. You know, we have before this past hurricane season, we had a list of known flood-prone areas on the east side and the west side. Unfortunately, that list has grown. But should the worst happen again, we'll be more ready, more prepared, we can be more proactive and get ahead of the flooding, have pumps deployed, have pump trucks deployed.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I want to stop Barrett right there, because you're wrong. I want you to think about this. Leisure Lane, Jasmine Lakes, Holiday Hills, Timber Oaks, Ironbark, Gray Birch, and now the work you did at Arbordale Nome, you guys have done a phenomenal job preventing flooding that would happen. And especially Arbordale Nome was something we couldn't do. What you guys have done out there especially is going to keep them from flooding. You guys mobilized quickly before Debbie came in, after Debbie came in, and what you did even after the fact. Those people in that whole area, 500 homes, are now going to have a way in and out because of the great work you did. So you have mitigated tremendously, so take credit for that.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, Commissioner, and I guess I'll kind of go back to a sports analogy. I forget who exactly said it, but you remember your losses more than your wins, and that's kind of where we're concentrating on. I appreciate what you're saying.
No, I'm telling you should be proud of what you've done. So many people that would flat out year after year and event after event, we're not in the news nearly as much as we used to be just because of that.
Sure.
So what you've done has been great, and you just keep doing the great work you're doing.
Well, we've had great
Take
support
credit.
from the top, so
Well, the board's
thank you all for that.
100% behind you.
All right, appreciate that, sir. We have established some areas that we need to improve internally: on-call process, sheltering plans, some new SOPs. We're establishing a deeper bench for the EOC. We were in there, 30-plus days, so we've established that we need a C shift and, to help prevent the burnout factor for our team. Always improving sandbag site operations, but, when I first came aboard, Branford had helped set the table, and we had a great framework, and we've just built off of that. We're improving our COOP plan. Unfortunately, there are times when we might have to get up and leave due to unforeseen, due to extreme circumstances, so we're working on that. And then one thing that's really cool I want to point out, we're improving our post-event aerial documentation. We have a licensed drone pilot now. I remember in the EOC, a few days after the event, the main storms had passed, and we were scrambling to get out there to get aerial footage. We're able to do that almost immediately now. And our operations manager just happens to be a helicopter pilot, so we're able to get eyes in the sky quickly with the drone or with a pilot. We had great cooperation with mosquito control. I think Andy, you were up there as well. So that's just a recap of where we're at and where we plan to be.
So I think it'd be very interesting to see some of that drone footage. We've never seen it. I don't,
I have to.
yeah, so I think it'd be great to show it to us and to the public. I think it might open their eyes. Barrett, you and I did a drive-through around Trinity, and we're not out of the woods in Thousand Oaks and Trinity Oaks yet. The sheriff and others from the state were in there evacuating people. You found that some of the ponds in, was it Heritage Springs?
Yeah, Heritage Springs, correct.
What was your findings?
Just that nothing too extreme, just that some swales needed to be redefined and some of our assets as well. Everything was relatively close to being in compliance. We did find one area where they need to reestablish some of their riprap, and it has kind of created a choke point. But our BMPs, our stormwater gates are looking good. As I said, the HOA and the CDD buy-in has been excellent. They've been in communication with SwiftMud, and their communication with Christine Parker, who was out there with us, has been great. They're moving right along on those repairs. I'm going to get a full report to you here later this week with a map and so forth, but we really didn't see anything too critical that needs to be taken care of, just some basic upkeep.
Since Jack is our resident stormwater guy, if you drive along Trinity Boulevard, which I don't know how often you do that, and you look to the right, south, at the Heritage Springs Lakes, and some of them are on the north, they're full to the brim all year long, and then others around them are dry. They go up and down, but those ones never go down.
So we have, there is a mix of retention and detention ponds over there. When we were meeting out there, I was initially thinking like these are all connected, so yeah, this doesn't look right. Upon further review, some of those are actually meant to hold some water, and our water table's been really high. So that could kind of explain why some of them were down and some of them still remain up. We're gonna keep an eye on those, but some are intended to hold water, and they aren't all connected, so I was mistaken there. But
Is there any way, and maybe it's not worth the effort, to get them ready for a big storm to hold more, have more capacity? The ones that are full before the storm comes?
we could start those talks with them. That's definitely an option. They would have to go through their own temporary pumping process, which I see Amber's here, and
Yes.
maybe we could have a offline offline about that. And
I
how
don't
we
know if
could
it's worth it, but.
Definitely. I mean, it could only help. So yeah, we could certainly pursue that. After they perform their maintenance, it would seem prudent for them to go ahead and create some more capacity, just like we do.
We have our Trinity Odessa Leadership Council meeting tonight, and Heritage Springs has been coming, and Swiftmud's gonna be there tonight, so.
Excellent.
This is gonna be a topic.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So, playing at the Heritage Springs Golf Course in Fox Hollow, I've noticed the water level is actually a lot lower through the end of this summer.
Good, so in the courses, the ponds are
So
lower?
The ponds are much lower. I do think there's probably capacity in all of them, those ponds. We can maybe put a plan together to take some of the silt that's filtered in, to take it out, to create that capacity, which we'll need in the heavy season. But for the most part, they are draining, and they are a lot lower.
Well, if you get a chance, drive along Trinity Boulevard and look at what I'm talking about. Okay, all right. Any more questions for Barrett? Man, you guys have a big job. Obviously, hopefully we're getting more pumps.
Yes.
The pump is in for the Gulf Harbor's lake.
Yep. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our whole team, but the operations team, especially for what, on the west side, the storm surge that came in, as quickly as it came in, it went out really quick too. And that's a testament to Larry, his staff, for the maintenance and upkeep. Water didn't stay trapped on the west side. It all drained back. So
Except for the Gulf Harbor.
certain areas, yeah, it was unpreventable. But for the most part, with your support, Mike, with your support, Branford, of course, we're able to do our thing out there, so to speak. And knowing that you guys have our backs is huge, and we could do our job. And know that if we need new pumps, new equipment, that we have your support. So we thank you.
I do have a question about FEMA reimbursements. Do you want those after?
We actually have a presentation that, at the very end, that covers
Okay,
that,
I'll
and
save
it'll
my
cover the
question.
one-pager that I sent to you yesterday.
So I would say with the stormwater team, they were great to communicate with. But I'm going to tell you a quick little story about Larry. So Larry is out in the field because we've got a blockage from a pipe that was replaced, but there's a blockage that the water's not flowing out. To try to find out where the water's flowing, whatever, Larry actually gets down in his shirts, lays down on the ground, reaches under for a pipe to see if the water's flowing, if anything's blocking it, right during the storm. So that's the type of dedication out there.
Okay. Sheltering and housing.
Good morning, members of the board. Brian Hoban, Director of Community Services. During an activation, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of fulfilling the role of Shelter Operations Chief. So this morning, I'm going to walk us through sheltering and housing. All right. So as Andy previously mentioned, we have a strong partnership with the school board, and that's really where our pre-landfall activation begins. So during a activation, our incident commander, in conjunction with our partners at the school board, they deem, based off of the size and the scope of the activation, what shelters are going to be necessary. And of course, as information changes and the size and scope change per incident, we adapt and open shelters accordingly. We do have BOCC staff at every shelter. I'll talk specifically a little bit about our special needs shelters here in a second, but we have staff at every school board shelter. We make regular communication with them every shift, and we do so from the EOC to really act as their liaison, their point of contact. And this is the beginning component of us gathering information pre-landfall into the activation to really prepare us for recovery, housing needs, and case management on the backside. We communicate regularly with them every shift to understand what are the needs at each specific shelter. It's also very important to us because we find out about power outages, we find out about special needs citizens that may have shown up to a regular shelter. We're also very informed and adept at kind of reacting to information specific to neighborhoods and areas where these citizens are sheltered. So it's very imperative that we keep that communication up. We do have 2 special needs shelters under a large scale, but always one special needs shelter. Of course, that's the Fasano shelter. That's run by the Department of Health, again, in conjunction with support from BOCC staff. And then Wiregrass Ranch acts as the east side special needs shelter if the operations deems it's necessary. The activations in regards to transportation, Go Pasco does transport our special needs citizens to those special needs shelter. Also, citizens can get to the shelters via their own personal vehicle, Uber, however they can get there safe. I know our information goes out early and often to try to encourage citizens to get to shelters while the road conditions are still safe and while Go Pasco can remain on the road, which is right around that 40-mile-per-hour wind mark. And then, of course, all of our shelters are pet friendly. Have to, give a plug to Animal Services. They do a phenomenal job. During last year's major incident, we had over 1,300 pets in those shelters. We'll talk a little bit about some of the grants that they've been seeking to continue their operations. But this is the imperative information as it pertains to pre-landfall and how we're starting to prepare our shelter operations. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So maybe Kathy could help with this question, but I was talking to one of the school board members, and I was wondering if we could use any of our CBGD, whatever, money for any cots, like for in these shelters, if the school board has storage for them, because like I've worked shelters, like I worked one during Irma, I had to, and it was very eye-opening because you have people just dropping 84-year-old people off at the curb with nothing. And it's heart-wrenching. And I remember this one story about this granddaughter saying, oh yeah, I'll come back, I'll give her, a blanket or a pillow or whatever. And she was so old and in diapers, and she's just laying on the ground, like with nothing. So is there any way maybe we could partner to see if they have storage, even if it's for the elderly, but, just so they're not on the floor is one question.
I'd like that.
And and then the second part is, and I don't even care if I do it, like if I ask the girls to do it for our area, but one of the things that I noticed was in these mobile home parks, so they're not on the call down list, right? They have no idea what the call down list is. They don't know how to get on the call down list, and that was really eye-opening for us as well. So is there any way, like even if we call those areas that we know that have the possibility to get flooded, saying, hey, if we talk to the administration there, or the manager, and say, hey, if you could get this message out to everybody, see who needs a ride from Go Pasco, meet here back at the park, and a bus will leave to pick you up. Because I was thinking, instead of being reactive, let's be proactive.
Absolutely.
And instead of sending Go Pasco out there 3 times in a day, just say, hey, let's have
This
the
is your time to pick
residents
up.
meet
Yeah.
here, and we'll take one trip to the shelter. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. Andy, do you want to address the COTS real quick? I saw you making a gesture.
So I do not believe the COTS will be eligible under the CDBG DR money. We have talked with the school board in the past about getting COTS at our shelters. The issue is, as you have mentioned, is the storage. Because, like, I'll give you a prime example with Wiregrass High School for this other special needs shelter. All that stuff is kept at the Fasano. We have to transport it all the way over there. And we're working with the school board, if I'm correct, Colin. They have a storage facility over there. I don't know how much we're gonna be able to put in it, but if we can get the special needs stuff moved over to that side of the county and see if we can procure some COTS to utilize. The state's pretty good about sending them to us when we ask for them.
Okay, so then can we get a storage, like even a storage shed that we could stack cots
We'd
up
have-
in that we own
We'd
and
have
we
to
put
work
on
with the
their
school
property?
board and see if they have
Okay.
on our property that we can use, so. But yeah, absolutely, it's a viable idea. It would be working with the school board and the state to see if the state's willing to give us more cots.
Because I will tell you, they say they're a Red Cross shelter. Red Cross does not come in and train those schools on how to be a shelter. They give them a binder
Yeah.
and say, you're a Red Cross shelter. And being one of those people that, you know, had to work, it's basically like, well, you're not allowed to help the people up. Are you kidding me? You know, we're gonna help these
Right.
people up off, you know, they said you're not supposed to, it's a liability thing, but when they're being dropped off and they don't even have a place to sleep other than a floor, I
Right.
just think, you know,
I-
any way we can help do cots or something would be great.
Right. Yes, ma'am. And I know our shelter staff here in Pasco County are trained in how to pick up people when they're laying on the ground and help them up and get them in a
I'm talking
comfortable
River Ridge High
position.
School, things
I,
like that.
I
you know,
am
'cause
sure we
they're
can
run
find
by the
places
school
to store
staff.
cots in this county. The Target distribution center that's sitting empty and probably not gonna be used for years comes to mind. But Commissioner Mariano?
I was gonna say, how many cots did we have this past year, and did they all get used?
You know how many you ended up with?
Cots or medical.
Cots.
So cots, it's in the, about 1,000, I believe,
Yeah.
and yes, they were deployed.
Okay. Was there any, at the end of the storm, did any go anywhere else?
Yeah, where are they?
The remaining are sitting at the Osteen, right?
Yes, we keep them in the Osteen warehouse, and then, as the director alluded to, we keep, the Wiregrass, high school cots at Fasano on campus.
I mean, in the Fasano shelter, you've got room out there too, if you wanted to put a container or two to store more, you could, correct?
Oh, that's a good one.
That I do not know. I have to talk with Andrew Baxter about that. Plus DOH, the Department of Health, both shelters 2 and 1 have stored supplies for special needs for Wiregrass, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I don't know if Andrew Baxter would have room to put a Connex box out there or a container or something that we could store them in there. My preference, you know, what cots especially, is that they stayed in some kind of climate control.
Yeah.
Because if they sit out in the heat,
But you can get connexes with climate control, because we have that on there.
yes. So,
Let's go back to the shelter though, so the shelter's got a ton of room in there. If you needed to have storage, you could actually store them there, couldn't you?
partially, it depends on how much we're gonna take up. Because during Milton, we use all 3 shelters, 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
So, is there some wiggle room? We'd have to get with Andrew Baxter and his team, and then with Trang and her team, because we'd have to figure out the semantics of where to store it.
If you set them up where you could store them there, the storm's coming, you're getting ready for it. You're gonna take them from there, frees up your spaces, you can either lay them out, and then they can go to the other location they gotta go.
Yes, that's possible.
Just to clarify, when I was talking about the Red Cross shelters and you said the staff is trained, that's at those shelters, but the ones that are schools, they're operated by school employees.
Yeah.
So they're not trained to help people up or anything. It's just basically on a volunteer basis.
So, there's a little confusion on that, because there's both school staff there and county staff there. School staff there are for the operations of the school. They'll send a principal in, their maintenance people, kitchen people if they need to cook. Registration and dormitory people are county employees. That's who they're supposed to be. Now, if they're mixing and matching, I do not know that, but one of the agreements we have with our MOU with the school board is they provide the staff for operations, we provide the staff for the customers, citizens, residents. So I know every year our staff is shelter trained, so we do a review with all of them that are involved.
And that has changed over the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
Because it wasn't that way.
No, it wasn't that
originally.
way. Actually, it's been 2 years, so since 23 is when we made that big change.
Great. If I could just remind everyone to speak into the mic so the
Oh,
clerk
I'm
can
sorry.
do the thing.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue here because now we're really looking at transitioning to the post-landfall information and the beginning of the short-term recovery actions. So after landfall, what we typically do is we start to demobilize the schools. And what that looks like is based off the information that we have and the citizens that are at the schools, we really start a condensing process where if the areas are safe and citizens can return home, roads are safe, fire rescue has made sure that there's no power outages, and citizens are safe to return, they start to demobilize and go back to their homes. They start to look at their own recovery journey and utilize social services as needed. But what happens to the individuals who can't, they start to condense down to the Fasano shelter, and that becomes the hub, really, of our short-term case management, our resources, and how we gather information from our citizens, how we develop a short-term and into a long-term recovery plan. So as citizens condense down to Fasano, we typically have a lot of partners there. The Red Cross is typically there, the Department of Health is there working with our special needs citizens. Under the last activation, we experienced state case management coming there. The Human Services team operates their case management out of there. Localized partners come, and then of course FEMA once that's deemed as an eligible option for us. So really the Fasano shelter becomes the hub where we're working with citizens on an individual basis, on an individual need basis, to develop their care plan and to develop their housing. And then, of course, last year presented us with a very unique opportunity. I believe it was first of its kind when we initiated the opportunity to launch a shelter recovery operation in the middle of an activation with Pasco Hope. So Pasco Hope was something that allowed us to pivot and create recovery opportunities. We had a co-located Pasco Hope, both at Grand Boulevard, which housed our pallet homes, our single individual units, as well as trailers that could occupy up to 2 individuals. And then at Youth Lane, we also provided a ton of 6-person family trailers there. There were 14 of those provided over there, with additional ADA compliance trailers provided over there.
Are they still there?
They are. They are still there.
I haven't seen those yet. I want to see.
Yep, yeah, they are still there. And of course, this really transitions into our long-term recovery and working with FEMA and how we provide the citizens the shelter needed, but also the recovery opportunity through case management. So I will say that Catholic Charities has been a phenomenal partner over at Pasco Hope and has been working to not only help the citizens recover, but also rehouse them as well. And that really ties into our partnerships, right? So even through our case management plan and our hub really located at the Fasano shelter, we did utilize partnerships with the United Way. We utilized partnerships with community development for short-term housing, hotel vouchers, for housing in emergency situations. Community development provided a process for us to be able to house individuals and continue that case management journey until we figured out what was the appropriate methodology for citizens to be able to recover appropriately and get back to where they need to be. Emergency management also contracts with a long-term recovery group after each activation. So Fresh Start is the long-term recovery group that we've contracted with after the previous 2 activations.
And what do they do? Fresh Start?
Fresh Start, they do the long-term case management. So anyone who has storm-related damage, they have a monthly meeting, and they have a network of not-for-profits, faith-based organizations that get together. And so they've typically done the muck and gut. They've connected citizens with resources. They help individuals get through their FEMA application. They've been kind of the go-to, which allowed the Human Services team to transition back to their day-to-day tasks after a couple months in the shelter.
And where do they meet?
So they meet virtually. I know they've used the EOC as their main hub. I believe that they come in there, but they cast their meetings virtually for not-for-profits. Jan Martini, yeah.
Jan Martini.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But does not have a different name? Well, in other counties, isn't that what Mr. Cruz has been trying to set up here?
A VOAD.
VOAD.
VOAD,
Is
yeah.
that acting as a VOAD?
In a lot of ways, Andy, I know there's subtle differences when you use the term.
Why don't you explain the subtle differences?
So our long-term recovery group basically goes out and helps with the homeless, low moderate income families, housing, food stamps, and they work with these families. The VOADs during an event basically are volunteer organizations that come in to assist. It could be, I use this one all the time, the Cajun Navy. They come in. Your other volunteer donations are All Hands and Hearts. Those are VOADs. They come in and do volunteer work for us. The long-term recovery group is more focused on homelessness, getting people up and running, special needs, and housing. So that's basically the two big differences.
So they work under you, or do they work under you?
They're-
So
Go ahead.
VOADs are their own thing. They usually work in conjunction with the long-term recovery group. Currently, we are putting together, not trying no more, we are actually putting together a tri-county VOAD, which will encompass Pinellas, Pasco, and Hernando.
Okay.
So Laura Wilcoxon has been working on that. I do not know where they're sitting as of right now because this is really in its infancy, but they are moving forward with that. Sir?
Yeah.
When you say homeless, is it people who become homeless, or is it the general homeless population that we?
So they've
every
actually
day?
worked with both people that have become homeless from post-storm, and they actually work with homeless people that actually live out on the streets.
Okay, and there was a little, some players in that field that were causing disruption during the recovery last time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's unfortunate. Okay, are you done then?
I have one more slide, but
Okay.
clicker's not working.
I do have a question. How many do we still have at Pasco Hope from the storm?
Yep, we have 51 citizens
really?
currently over at the Youth Lane site,
Oh, different.
and we have 38 citizens total over at Grand Boulevard. Or excuse me, that's reversed. 51 citizens at Grand Boulevard, 38 over at Youth Lane.
And those
which
are
is the
from
family
the
shelter.
hurricane?
Yes.
So what are we doing to get them into permanent? Because now they would have been
So-
there for months and months and months.
So I will say, we've already transitioned, around 10 to 12 citizens out of those shelters. So they're working with our housing navigator specifically from the county. Also, Catholic Charities is working with them, but there have been placements and citizens that have been. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's something I want to bring up about
Yeah.
FEMA checks.
And we're looking at everything too. It's not just, the FEMA checks. Some of these individuals who specifically ended up there really need long-term care. We have an older population of seniors that are mostly comprise our Youth Lane population over there. So we're looking at, case management for them, and is it appropriate to help them transition to assisted living facilities, or what are their best options?
Oof. So,
May not be our place, but for that population, do we have people or an organization we can point to help them through insurance? Is FEMA helping them with their potential insurance claims if they lose their home and become homeless, or who's helping? Are they just waiting on
So
their adjuster?
that's standard for us when we do the intake. We ask them, are you a homeowner? Have you contacted your insurance? Have you made a FEMA claim? Like that's standard right through the basic case management. I will tell you that the majority of the people that we are serving are not homeowners or don't have insurance. So we're just working our way through the process and trying to cover every basis from a case management perspective. And then going, of course, through our not-for-profits and working with, some have state benefits, some don't, but we're working each individual case trying to maximize the opportunity for these citizens to recover.
That's good. I just hate
Okay.
that insurance companies jerking somebody around for, 9 months now? If that's still the case. Okay, all right, thanks.
yeah,
I would be remiss to say that with the Pasco Hope, again, we could not have done this without our utilities, our
Yeah.
public works, our road maintenance, our facilities. They did all this during a storm. All of them come together. We're all in hectic with our own lives, and they made this happen. So I can't say enough thank you to that.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Trang Chittacone, Health Officer at Department of Health in Pasco County. Thank you for having me here today. I want to talk a little bit about our special needs shelter. So during a response, I work with Brian and under the direction of the EM manager to operate the special needs shelter. And this is a shelter for individuals with limited medical needs, specifically oxygen dependent. We're lucky, I know we know that we're all lucky that we have our regional shelter here, the only one in the state. And I do want to point out that with having a shelter in Pasco, about 7 years ago, we were able to procure our oxygen generator, and this is at our shelter. And this last year, it was able to operate for 4 weeks nonstop, which allowed us to have the capacity to house those residents that are oxygen dependent without depending on a vendor to come and fill those needs.
Did I hear you say this is the only special needs shelter in the state?
Regional, yes, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What is everyone else doing?
So,
Go ahead.
real quick, sorry, Trent.
That's shocking.
We get visits to
Yes, we
that
do.
shelter every year. We'll get 7, 8, 9 counties that come down or up and want to see it and want to build one. The hinge point for all these counties, and we were very fortunate, and we got grants to help with building the facility. That's their pinch point. And plus ours is it LEED or lean? LEED. Very efficient. And other counties, they just want to build a building that's something that resembles ours, but they want to see how it functions. So we have not heard anybody breaking ground to build a facility like the one we have here in Pasco.
Do you remember how much that cost us?
No.
Okay, just curious. Should have been 2 feet higher, that's all I'm saying. Jack tried.
Get the lead down anyway.
All right.
And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been working on and what we continue to work on. So we always try to engage our community partners, specifically related to the operations of the shelters, our client caretakers. So this year, we're taking an extra effort to work with our EM to engage our long-term care facilities and home health agencies to provide support so that they understand their plans and should they need to come to the shelter if they're going to be bringing their patients there, that there would be additional support. Many times, especially home health agencies, they will bring their clients to our shelter, and then the caretakers will either go evacuate or somewhere else. So just engaging them a little bit more and working with them to see how we can support each other.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Should we not have like contracts with those facilities? I know we hired one to help take care of my in-laws when they were in their assisted living facility. Did they provide some kind of rotation with their own staff during something like that? Can we contract?
Well, and Andy probably can provide a little bit more, but I understand that especially long-term care facilities, they have a plan that gets submitted to the state every year on what their plans are to be during an activation. And the shelter should be the place of last resort. So they should be transporting to another sister facility and what have you. Just because it depends on our capability, and each county has different medical capabilities. And so we review some of those plans, and the state reviews some of those plans, but the shelter should be the place of last resort, just for the safety of those clients.
If you remember, it was Irma or Ian where they just dropped them out the door and ran.
Exactly, yes, ma'am.
was
So
a
the
disaster.
long-term care facilities do something called the SEP, which is a Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan.
Yep.
And it has to be submitted to us every year for review.
Yeah.
So we review it, and the things that are supposed to happen when the storm comes is they are supposed to contract with another facility, whether it be a sister facility or another facility that's willing to take some of the residents in. Unfortunately, all the moving parts of that never really fall in place because the first thing they got to contract with is private ambulance providers, like AMR or MedFleet. You look at any SIM for any of our long-term care facilities, and every one of them are contracted with MedFleet that have maybe 7 ambulances in Pasco County.
And their staff is our staff, and they're probably activated through us, right? Because it's
Some of
our
their employees
firefighters that
are.
are driving them.
Yeah,
our
some of them
EMTs
are.
that driving them.
So I'll give you a prime example. A long-term care facility in St. Petersburg sent their residents to the Greek Orthodox Church on Little Road to house there with their staff. That's never supposed to happen. It's borderline illegal for something like that to happen. They're supposed to follow their SEMP and go to a registered facility, and if not, they start looking for hospital beds in hospitals if they're available. But unfortunately, some of the times, we end up, Train's group ends up getting them brought to them, and they have to house them.
Right, yeah. And sometimes they go to the school, like
Yeah,
last
but
year.
sometimes they show up
Right.
at schools.
So,
We have
yeah.
one facility here locally in Pasco that tried to book the Hilton in an emergency to put all their clients in a Hilton hotel.
A shelter?
Yeah, no, a long-term care facility.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Who pays for
They-
that? Them?
interesting things.
I remember, I got a call from the, one of the future speakers, Jennifer Kennedy, that they had 200 people on a bus for Wiregrass Ranch, and they were all medically needy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Coming from another county?
yeah. They were from St. Pete, I believe, and then got routed to Polk, and then they couldn't get out, Polk couldn't service them, and then they couldn't get gas in Polk to try and get here. It was crazy. But again, 200 people they needed to make room for last minute.
So we continue to engage them and work with them, just so that we're prepared beforehand. Also, on the same lines of community partners, we are very fortunate to be able to work with our EM and our facilities folks to reduce our setup time for Wiregrass. Andy alluded to it earlier, that all of our supplies for Wiregrass is at Fasano, and it takes 5 26 box trucks to move that equipment over. So in the past, it took us about 12 hours to be able to set up back and forth. And thanks to Brian Corley's group and the school board, we were able to move all of those things and set up within 4 hours. And there's a little picture of what it looks like fully set up. We are also working on building our capacity. So we have about 160 employees, but only 13 of them are medical staff. So when you're talking about capacity and able to take care of the residents that get there, we're looking at 20 per nurse, a ratio of 20 clients per nurse. And if you break up my nursing staff to 4 shifts, you're looking at 3 to 4 medical staff per shift. So in the last couple of years, we have contract personally with medical providers.
Okay.
And
Like traveling nurses or something?
yes, traveling nurses. So last year, I think we got up to about 18 of them. And then with Andy's help, we were able to get some LPNs as well from the state. So that not only allowed us to help the clients that were there, but once we closed, or once the storm passed, and my folks have to go back to work to open up offices, this allows us to continue to operate the shelter as well. And next slide. Oh, I got the, uh-oh. There we go. And I think everybody got a copy of the matrix, something that we worked on last year. So the state doesn't really give us clear guidelines on what's special needs. It all depends on the county and what's needed in the county. So something we worked on really hard, my group did, was try to define what special needs is. So we created a matrix. Now this is very fluid. It still depends on the situation and obviously our community partnership. We don't want to be so stringent that we only have a few people and there's more people at the schools that really can come to our shelter. So it can be very fluid, but it gives us a little bit more guidance on what is special needs and what our capabilities are. This is going to be used for our nurses. We're going to engage with the school board and the county to allow dialogue to talk about what qualifies as special needs. And it's really just a partnership that we're trying to make sure that we're working with the community, but then meeting the needs of the most vulnerable population as well. And then I just want to address post-storm. While some of the things that we have in our toolkit that we will continue to build upon is public health support letters, such as debris removal, mosquito control letters of support, advisories, sending those things out, working with Tamari's group to make sure that we send those things out. Those all come from the state, and the state's working to make sure that we have a toolkit that we can readily access post-storm so that we can communicate any public health messages in a timely manner. Any questions? All right. I appreciate you for having me here.
I have a question. It says here with caregiver.
Yes.
So two people come? Because I thought you were providing some nursing, so I'm trying to figure this out.
So the requirement is that they bring a caregiver, but our ratio to clients that come, last year, I think at Pisano, we had about 250, 270 clients, and we probably had about 5 caregivers or 10 caregivers that came with each client. So, to address that, we try to build our capacity, and we're trying to work with our community partners so that they understand that it is a requirement for them to bring a caregiver.
So do some of the caregivers come and go?
Yes. Just like Commissioner Yeager alluded to, they will drop them off and pick them up later.
Yeah. Okay, tough. All right.
This last slide just rounds out sheltering, and it really just is a depiction of the grants that Animal Services was awarded in 2025, and those grants specifically are for shelter operations as well as equipment, specifically kennels. I know that there's always a need for kennels, so I just wanted to round off sheltering with that last slide as we transition to 911.
Nice. So, okay, that should buy a lot of dog kennels. All right, 911.
So I am covering 911.
Okay. Oh.
So can you play that, sir?
Huh?
So this is an audio recording.
Glasses on there.
Tell me exact. This is an actual.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to my house with my animals.
When you say you're trapped in your house, tell me exactly what happened.
The water is up to my knees.
Okay.
My dogs are on the couch. I can't open my front door.
So that's just one.
Tell me exactly what happened, Miss.
All right, that was a little confusing. Okay, so that was one of the many calls that 911 received during Helene. We listened to a bunch of them, and it's just jaw-dropping what our citizens went through. But this is very brief. On average, 911 receives about 11,500 calls during a normal operational week. During both hurricane weeks, they average about 16,000 calls. The peak of Milton, it got so hectic in the 911 center that we have a bank of phones that is not in 911 that actually lives in the EOC. It's on the back wall. They started ringing, and I just happened to turn around and look, and I'm like, why are those phones ringing? So somebody went and picked it up, and it was a 911 call. So the system got taxed so hard that it actually did what it was supposed to do and dump it into the EOC on that phone wall. Those are there for specific reasons. We also had the Day City 911 center stood up, and it was operating as well. They were working an Alpha Bravo shift during Milton, and the Bravo shift was working, so it was at night. It was around probably 11:30, 12 o'clock when this all occurred. It got so busy that they had to go in there and wake everybody up that was sleeping, working for 911, to grab a phone so they could start answering calls. Every station in the 911 center was being utilized to answer calls, and all 6 phones in the EOC on the back wall were being utilized to answer calls. What makes it even harder to work with, the people in 911 center, they're on computers typing these calls out live. The people that were in the EOC had to use pen and paper and then run that paper back into the 911 center in order to get the call out through dispatch, if they were even able to respond at that time. And I know from 8:30 that night till about 2:30 in the morning during Milton, operations were shut down. Nobody could respond anywhere. So these calls just kept stacking and stacking and stacking. So kudos to the 911 folks, Eric Seltzer and his team. They really busted their hump to make the citizens and answer the call service. It was a good job. So building forward, he learned a lot off of this, him and his team. So now they're doing a countywide comms down drill to ensure readiness. And basically what that is the computer system goes down. How do we answer calls? You'll still get the phone call on their headset, but they can't input data. So now they're implementing forms and going through that in order to streamline a process that we do not, or we don't drop calls of service.
Can we not, instead of writing on a piece of paper, can they not write on a tablet or something where you write, it turns it into text and send it? Seems like
That I
that'd be
do not know. That would be something you have to speak with IT and Eric.
Yeah, I think the point is to, get as low tech as possible to ensure you can still provide service. But
Correct.
those are all, depending on, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I know Captain Seltzer could probably speak more to that. We'll have him get back to you on that, but.
And radios, right?
Yes.
All
Old-fashioned
of it.
radios, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of their drills.
So request some maintenance on equipment prior to hurricane season. So now they're gonna have IT come in and make sure everything is up and running properly. Don't need no tune-ups, don't need no software upgrades. Read-off training and hurricane general order review. So now all their supervisors and employees in 911 review the GO that was sent out for hurricanes. So that way they have it fresh in their mind, they're ready to work. Open both centers 24/7 to ensure continuous service. We did that during Helene and Milton. It does take off some of the burden off one center and kind of divvy it out to the other center. So they double up on their staff, and like I said, an Alpha Bravo shift. They open the incident command channels, and those are usually to the battalion chiefs, the EOC, both law enforcement and fire rescue. And they open the tactical channels, and those are for the boots on the ground. So say when we were doing water rescues during Helene, they were operating on different TAC channels. Holiday might have had one TAC channel. Hudson was on a different channel. So that way they weren't overlapping and confusing each other. Because me coming from fire rescue and being on a scene with multiple channels going, you can lose your mind really quick trying to figure out what's going on. And do I have any questions on 911 that I can answer? Little ones.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So just to tag on your idea of thinking about it, if there is a way to use that technology, I know you want to try to keep it simple, but
That is
if you can actually take it, write it on there and get it to text, and they can send it, instead of walking it over and
Yeah.
telling it, I think that's something worth looking at.
Yeah, I wrote down cascading levels of low tech, right? And so we may not need to go to paper immediately because maybe it's only comms, but if you lose everything, then maybe that's your last resort. So we'll certainly discuss that with Captain Seltzer and the team.
And now pass the baton.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chair, everybody. Ryan Glenn, Pasco County Fire Rescue. Just to reach back into dispatch for just a second, one of the things that we realized as Director Fossa was describing, that the call volume kind of stacks up a little bit while we're doing our emergency response with some other things. And what we've learned is that in the past, when we put an individual inside the dispatch center that can help triage and prioritize some of those calls, oftentimes dispatchers don't want to take that liability on, so we put that back on ourselves. And during the first hurricane, we kind of had a delay getting back out and clearing those calls out, but I think we did a lot better job. We were on the second one, because we realized that was a mistake, and we fixed that immediately. So, adapting, we have a collaborative partnership and joint training with PSO. We've been working on that extensively. We've had a training on the 29th of last month with them. We actually have a 36-hour tabletop exercise that we're going to go through at the end of next month as well, and we're continuously doing that. So, we encountered wind, rain, flooding, electrical hazards, fire hazards, et cetera. And, those are some of our main concerns, and that's what we're continuously always trying to figure out on how to improve on. Helene, we had a 36-hour operation period with roughly 200 rescues. Milton, we had, almost a 2-week operation period with over 1,000 rescues. And, 1,200 rescues between the two hurricanes, it sounds like a lot, but I say it's only 1,200 rescues because, as has been said many times, to my left, the consistent messaging. I think each commissioner took turns putting out messaging. Director Fossa, Mr. Kabala, and Tammy certainly put it out to evacuate, and that's all we had to rescue was 1,200 because we got the message out, and thankfully people listened. So that's a benefit and something we should all pat ourselves on the back for. So building forward, during our first 2 operational periods, we only had 3 swiftwater boats. We now currently have 6. Which is double our capacity. We have also 7 John boats with some motors and a couple of larger Sea Arcs. We've also recently taken delivery of our large 35-foot aluminum fireboat. I hate to say that if a hurricane hits, hopefully at least it'll hit during the daytime maybe, so we can operate a little more effectively. But some of the things that we've realized is that when we're traversing these flooded streets during this water movement, and I know it doesn't seem like the water moves very fast, but we watched it while we were operating, for a few hours, literally cross 19 and then traverse back. So the closer you are to the Gulf, the faster that water is actually moving, and we can't see anything out there. The comms was low, lighting was low. We didn't have any type of additional lighting on our apparatuses on our boats, and our radios don't work really well in 8 feet of water as well. So we worked through that problem. We've also ordered the 2 high water vehicles, which unfortunately won't be here for this hurricane season, but will be a huge asset when they do arrive. Additionally, we've taken possession of a heavy equipment team. We are one of only 3 in the United States to have this type of a team. This consists of 4 skid steer tractors and 2 excavators that are used for pretty much just clearing roadways and making emergency access paths. I know we were worried about debris being in the road and blocking responders. We kind of put together a makeshift team last year because we knew this was going to be a situation with Public Works and Sheriff's Office, and we were running around in pickup trucks, but it was very ineffective and very laborious. These will be much more expedient. And of course, those come with the trailers and the trucks to pull them with as well. So,
Question on those.
Yes, ma'am.
As a family who's had tractors for many years, you don't use them. They fall into disrepair. So how are you gonna use them if we don't have a storm?
We're technically allowed to use them in county for whenever we want to. We use them for training. We've got with Keith Wiley and his group to find out a few opportunities that we can utilize them and help him out with some of his just daily operations as well. So it's additional training for us as well as the equipment.
If other counties have need of this service, can we contract with them for your team to go there?
We can. That team is actually fully refundable and deployable. We're expected to deploy, and on that note, with recent conversations through the Florida Fire Chiefs Association and around the state, and with Ms. Joanne Rice, we're kind of up in the air on what we're expecting as far as federal responses during an emergency. So the state's considered that we're going to be expected to kind of hold our own. Pasco County has become a little bit of a powerhouse as far as special operations and deployable assets goes. So if the hurricane doesn't hit here, we're probably going to be expected to supply significant resources. So.
But we get reimbursed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
So, listening to Barrett talk really about this, all the stormwater stuff he's gonna need, I think it'd be good if you guys got together, worked out what you could use, when you could use it. When the storm hits, he's not gonna need it anyway, because they need it for your use and so forth. I think there's a way to combine those resources to make them more effective.
Yes, sir.
Wait. The contract says the state could take away our toys?
Yes. Yeah.
they can deploy them.
Did we buy them with state money?
No, no,
ma'am.
they were
Well, wait a
given,
minute.
they were given to us by the
By-
state.
Oh, these tractors?
So they're,
Yes, ma'am.
they're basically
Oh, okay.
on
All
loan.
right, well, I'll forget.
They're on loan.
Yeah, they're on loan. We have to maintain them. We're allowed to use them. If we
Okay.
break them, we buy them.
Okay.
But, you know, but they're getting used and
Okay.
it's a good.
Well, I like that they trust us to
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
house those kind
Yeah,
of.
the trucks were given directly to us. The trailers and equipment is still a state asset that's, can be called upon when needed.
Okay.
And then, of course, building forward, last year we had 90 special ops members, and when I say special ops, those are the ones that have the individual training, you know, we have the line crews as well, but we've transitioned to a response package of, we leave our, majority of our firefighters in the stations to handle the additional 300 calls that come in on average a day, and we call in our special ops teams, because they're the ones with the swift water, the high water, the high angle, all the specialty certificates that you need to kind of deal with these type of incidences. Last year we had 90. This year we've staffed up and trained an additional 110. We have roughly about 200. And then we've, of course, added in another 80 personnel with our ramp up with the D shift, which gives us a larger surplus of individuals that we have to call in. That's pretty much where we're at, so.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So I want to say you and your team working with the sheriff's office, 2,400 rescues, what a phenomenal job. Really, it was just incredible. I want to just ask you, I asked Tambry earlier, as far as messaging goes, and we talked about different things about shutting down utilities, shutting down electric, getting people to understand it's getting out of there. Do you think if along 19, you have these big giant billboards that be electronic, to tell people, maybe show a picture of a storm coming in, maybe about evacuation to 19, do you think that would help the message where you can push that point on with getting people out of there?
Oh, absolutely. I think that what we did last year was phenomenal. That's why I say we had, 1,200 rescues, but it was only 1,200 rescues. So any additional is going to be super beneficial.
I'd like to, if you could, might work with them and bring back something to kind of show us what it could be, and maybe we revisit how to try to take advantage of that situation.
Yes, sir. We have that for action.
Did all of our electronic billboards on 19 give us the opportunity to do messaging, or do
Yes,
we need to
ma'am.
work with them?
Yeah.
So how many did we have?
So we had, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do the life safety information on our billboards. So we do the evacuations.
Nice.
And then following that, we did the where you can get help, which was directing people back to the website. But the evacuations,
But
absolutely.
do you remember how many billboards we had?
I think we had 2 different designs, yeah. So one pre-storm and one post.
But how many different billboards were
Oh,
we on?
I'm so sorry. So yeah, so working with Clear Channel, we have 6 around the entire county.
Nice.
Just a question, did we utilize, the electronic, where it says road work ahead, whatever?
Variable message boards?
Yes.
Yes, we
Those
do.
are perfect. 'cause
We
they come in and
utilize some
out.
of those. In fact, we utilized a lot of them when it came to directions to the comfort stations, the DRCs, the pods. We also used them, I know Barrett's group used them for detours and whatnot, but we do put them out. The bad thing about it is, it's preferred to use them post-storm than pre-storm,
Because you have to pick them up.
because you have to pick them up, and if you don't grab them in time, you're not gonna find them afterwards.
And their missiles.
Yes.
And we did utilize the LED trucks as well to advertise our comfort stations and things like that.
And, Amp Skills has some messaging vans that I'm sure they would be happy to park out on 19 with messages. Did we contract with those,
Troy Stevenson.
what's his name?
Troy Stevenson.
Troy, and there's another company.
LED.
Did we contract with those guys? Is that how we got those mobile messaging boards?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And how many of those were there? Does anyone remember? 3? Okay.
They
I like those 'cause they can move around.
They got the message out very well.
Yeah, those are perfect. And then they're not there all the time, destroying the look of 19, any worse than it is. Okay. Comfort stations and pods.
Yes, ma'am.
Comfort King.
Good
You
morning.
didn't wear your crown, Sean.
I was told I was not allowed to, sir, by the MRC chief, director.
It's probably good advice.
Yeah. Good morning, Commissioners. Sean McGarvey, Libraries Director, Comfort Station and Pods. So first off, let us split the difference between what a comfort station and a pod is, because, and we'll discuss it a little further down, what we discovered is that these two do not mesh very well when held on the same location. A comfort station is an area for citizens to achieve basic levels of sanitation and kind of home services. So for instance, washers, dryers, bathrooms, showers, hot showers, those types of resources. A pod or point of distribution is a service center dedicated to providing basic support functions, eating, drinking, ice to keep what you have cold. So the logistics of both vary depending on the actual location and needs. So what we did this year, so we distributed over 100 pallets of food and water at our at our pod locations. We delivered over 2 tractor trailers full of ice. And we also had 12 locations having washer and dryer locations, restrooms at 10 locations, showers at 10 locations, and charging stations at 12 locations throughout the county. These sites were distributed, as you can see in this next slide, along areas that were heavily impacted by the storms. So we attempt to locate these stations as close as we can to areas that have been heavily affected, but there are some requirements for these stations. They've got to meet a minimum space and code requirement that's established by both FEMA and state regulations. They also, as we discovered, need easy access both in and out. If you try and get these directly into disaster areas, what you end up doing is bottlenecking citizens who are also trying at the same time to remove debris, to remove damage, and also potentially evacuate. We also discovered that they need the closest thing is a sewer connection, because they all generate gray and black water, which needs to be drained out into the proper receptacles and not just vented. I cannot thank enough Barrett Doe and his team and Public Works for giving us complete and easy access to transfer stations and other areas where we were able to quickly and easily dispose of these gray and black water locations. It provided faster turnaround for all of these locations and made them function much, much better. So what we do for the comfort stations, and I'm sorry this text is very small, so I gotta look over there. We order these through WebEOC, which is the state system that allows us to request resources. And we put in these requests in advance where we know the location. So post-storm, but pre-actual stand-up, so probably within 24 to 48 hours after the storm. These are supported by vendors, mostly Duty Calls, which is out on 52, and other vendors throughout the state. We also provide security that is also ordered through WebEOC. Sometimes it could be the Sheriff's Department. Sometimes it could be vendor-provided security. And finally, we keep staff at these locations to make sure that citizens' requests and needs are met. These are usually staffed at comfort stations by various departments who have available staff and are able to properly assist at the location. Pods are a different setup entirely. So these supplies are ordered through WebEOC, same way, but they're ordered in a bulk unit. So when you order a pod, you are given, for instance, a tractor trailer full of meals ready to eat and another tractor trailer full of potable water. So these are operated by Parks and Recreation. Their outdoor staff are designated for this service, and they go and create these locations and assist. The state and the National Guard can sometimes be able to assist in these locations unless they are called away to higher priority areas. So for instance, during some of the events, they were here for a day or two, and then Parks and Recreation took over the running of these locations post that.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you have requests, was there any way to request laundry soap or no? Because I know that we had some nice people donate in the community to the comfort stations, but is there any way we can provide that?
So I'm not 100%. I will look to Director Faso is shaking his head no.
We
Unfortunately,
can't- They just give us the basic setup when they when they send the unit over there. That would be put on the onus of the county to purchase that if we wanted to supply it to the residents and citizens or customers.
Okay,
I
because I
will-
know that was a thing, their house got destroyed and then they had to try and find laundry soap.
Oh, interesting.
So,
I will say to your point, Commissioner, the citizens who were not affected in Pasco County were incredibly generous
Yeah.
and donated laundry soap and detergent and honestly, children's toys and clothing. So almost every site had a lot of other resources available through the generosity of our citizens.
Yeah.
So as I was saying about pods, the Guard assists with staffing these locations as well, but they are primarily staffed by our Parks and Recreation outdoor teams. Finally, these refills are also requested through WebEOC and the state, and they supply as they can make resources available depending on the necessity of other areas within the state. So, for instance, we could request ice, but if another area was at a higher priority level, we would get it when it became available. Same with MREs and water. So how do we plan to adapt in the future? So beforehand, emergency operations and myself are working to identify locations throughout the county for potentially affected areas. So we will have our closest locations available, identified in advance. We will create that master list so that once the event becomes closer, we will be able to quickly target locations and deploy resources after the storm. We'll also be pre-ordering WebEOC supplies in advance of the storm in a much greater rate than we normally do in past storms. So we're gonna have stations on call and ready. We're gonna have pod distribution points on call and supplies ready. So we're also gonna stockpile supplies as well, such as potable water and MREs, things that have a large shelf life. These will allow us to deploy these resources in a much timelier fashion. But I will state that we managed to get these resources out very quickly to our citizens and reach certain locations that were very heavily impacted. What you do not see is a slide in here, which is also something that Commissioner Waitman brought up earlier, which is assisting citizens with applying for aid, working with their insurance companies and other things. Those are called disaster recovery centers. We had 3 located within the county. We had one in Zephyr Hills at the city council chambers. We had one at the Dade City One-Stop Shop for Cooperative Extension, and we had a third one at the Hudson Library. So those sites were staffed by a variety of state and federal agencies, alphabet soup. They saw over total 60,000 residents of Pasco County and assisted with that.
I was a customer.
Yes, ma'am. Hudson Library recently just ceased being a location for them for the Small Business Administration, which was doing loans recently and talking with citizens, as well as the Elevate Florida program, which was there recently. So these sites were the primary way that citizens were also provided aid. What we discovered is putting comfort stations with DRC locations, such as we did at the One Stop Shop and at Hudson Library, provided good benefit because citizens who were damaged and affected could start their laundry, go work with the representatives from the agencies, and then hopefully do the services and get the things that they needed while they were in the location. So we worked to try and identify those locations in advance as well.
Madam Chair,
So smart. Yes.
I want to say,
Great job.
Sean, you did a phenomenal job
Great job.
getting out there. As
Yeah.
quick as you got them was amazing. When we got the ice, when people don't have power and they just need to keep food that's going to be safe, milk, whatever, it made a huge difference. And literally when those trucks would go, it's like sometimes we bring them to different locations. Leisure Beach was groundswell of support, but I can tell you from the help that it was at Seapine, it was phenomenal. And I know Hudson Library as well, so I think your speed was great. To what you did was like we've never seen before, so great work.
Really, great job.
Thank you. And as Barrett said, we can always do better, and we plan to make strides in that, God willing, or God forbid if we need to again.
Okay, solid waste? Who's got solid waste?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Kevin Pliska, Director Solid Waste. I also have John Batista and Tim Treschler here with us. So I'm going to step through the first three slides pretty quickly so we can focus mainly on slide 4. So as you know, two storms very different in nature. Our early projections were 1.4 million cubic yards. When we had our consultant do the survey, we bumped it up a little bit, so we did come in pretty accurately. We were within 99.9% complete by the FEMA deadline for reimbursement. So we, did a good job getting it done on time and safely. As you know, Helene, West Coast storm surge, about 400,000 cubic yards. Milton, countywide, a lot of wind, riverine flooding, and that was a huge vegetative storm, right? 900,000 cubic yards, mainly on the East Coast. Adaption and action. As you all know, county crews were out fast and early with surveys and actually doing debris pickup. Sea Pines, 0700, 48 hours after the storm, crews were out there. That provides many benefits, right? We're actually picking up debris, but also it's out there where our customers, our residents are seeing us. So, we jumped around different communities because of that, right? We want people to know we're coming and that we're out there. That also sets the tempo and the expectations for our contractors. Hey, we're out here, where are you? Get out here. And we'll get into some good news on that line item or that topic on slide 4. We established 16 zones, west to east, north to south. That helped us prioritize our response really based on health and safety first and foremost. And then we got into some efficiencies, economic concerns, etc. Straddling the storms was extremely stressful for our entire team, for our customers, for everybody involved. The team did a great job. I know when we were in between storms, just trying to get through certain communities like Gulf Harbors was a mess during the day.
Yep.
So John Batista and the team working with Public Works, what do? We spin up night operations. We ran that for 5 or 6 nights ahead of Milton, right? Now we're talking about what else can we do, right? We got the storm coming. We got a bunch of debris at Mag Valley, DDMS. We have to get that out. So we get all of that stuff out to at least lessen some of the concerns from that neighborhood and get it to a safer spot. And then, as you all know, we got creative and we got over 24 small haulers signed up. That was remarkable, the amount of work working with county attorney's office, purchasing, figuring out how we can do this, how can we be creative. We have a lot to learn around that, and there's a lot more opportunities, but it certainly was impactful. So 5 nights, 5 days we ran. There was about 24 haulers involved. 5 of them did half the work. So that's something to think about too as we go forward. There were some that were just much better equipped to be impactful, but they did 10,000 tons right in front of Milton, getting it out of those sensitive areas right west of 19. So they moved a lot of material in a short period of time. Going on to the next slide, we already talked about the rapid mobilization needed. Next, novel solicitation. If you remember, we were losing contractors to other communities. So working with Andy, FDEM, County Attorney's Office, and purchasing, we figure out how can we smartly go and make some amendments to our contracts that will allow us to hold on to what we have so that we can get the work done on time. Right on top of that also, we had an underperforming contractor that we had to replace. Again, County Attorney's Office purchasing, how do we do this? Tim had a great suggestion. Let's flip the procurement on its head and say, hey, we're going to tell you what the price is. You tell us how much debris you're going to remove. This is a production-based solicitation because we need the stuff to be gone. Don't tell us the price. So we learned some things there as well. We ramped up debris management sites. At the beginning of the storm, we had 4. We jumped up to 6 by adding 2 more on the east side. We had one private, which was on River Road, and then we got Boyette. And thanks to the Parks Department for loaning us that property during that time. And then also, we were able to reach out to other state departments. Department of Agriculture allowed us an open burn permit on the agricultural zone, the private property, and that was a big deal. We had no complaints, and about 400,000 cubic yards of debris was reduced using that. We still repurposed about 500,000 cubic yards of vegetative debris by mulching it.
Nice.
But these tubs, these, grinders, they were hard to find, We're all the way from Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, all of these communities, after these types of resources. So that did help out significantly. So building forward, a lot of lessons learned here. Communication, I think solid waste, we probably could have done better being out earlier in the public, right? The GIS board, the map that we got up and going was a huge success.
Yes.
A lot of hits. It told us where we're working, what's next, when we're going to be in an area. But we were probably a few weeks late on getting that up and running. So that's an area that I think we can be prepared better for the future. Leveraging IT to making good decisions, but also that same information, having it public facing. So our customers, our citizens know where we are and where we're coming next. Tim is working with GIS to take 16 zones and giving much more granularity based on population and neighborhood, right? Some zones were huge, right? Especially on the east side. 15 and 16 were mammoth zones, so it would be nice to have more granularity to neighborhoods and when we're going to be there. We will open up the self-reporting tool to our citizens earlier. So after we do our phase 1 cleanup, our first pass, we will open it up, and that's when people go in and self-report. And then
When you say self-report, you mean ask for a pickup? What do you mean by self-report?
it's essentially saying, we've done our first pass, and if you still had stuff in your house
Yeah, 'cause
or
my-
you didn't get everything done,
I did
you
it
can
much later.
report it, and then we get it on a route after we
Okay.
complete all of phase 1.
Yeah, that was very important to the citizens, because they were calling, asking when you were coming, so I did reach out to some and let them know, and of course, John Power helped in that too, so he let people know when he was gonna be there, and they had all their rubbish and everything they had out on the street, but they had it there ready, and they got it picked up, and we're very thankful. So a lot of citizens thanked us for letting them know you were on the way there.
I recall at the meeting in Dade City that you guys had some different challenges than we had on our side because of all the trees that were down, they couldn't get the other debris to the street. There's no place to put it.
Right.
So it was a different animal on the east
Yeah,
side.
some of them, you saw on deck and in the circle with debris stacked up, so, yeah. And then lastly, with technology, we need to get GPS in all of the county vehicles that are doing routes and whatnot, and that can be as simple as a cell phone, right? And having it linked to the GIS map so we know where our people are as well.
Air tags.
Talking about debris management site selection, there was a lot of tension around one site. I think the team did a good job being out, speaking in the community. Barrett, I know you and Tim were actually out speaking to the neighbors.
Talk about Maggie Valley?
Yes, ma'am.
So did any damage occur to anyone in Maggie Valley? Everyone was afraid it was gonna blow into their homes, break their windows.
No.
Yeah, so I think the experience that it didn't happen might calm some people down if it
Yeah,
happens again.
and it's still a sensitivity that we're looking at going forward. There are other locations that may be more prime that, we're thinking about, especially West Coast. The efficiencies, the importance of having a quick turn means so much, especially on the West Coast because of all the traffic. So DDMS location's something that's going to get a lot of attention from us on how we can do better there.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
To give you an idea, we've got that stormwater project that's out there. There's a lot of fill that's all around that's gonna be taken out. I think if you went around to where that site was and put some giant berms, kind of like they do at Reunion and
Oh, yeah,
places.
kind of like buffer it,
Buffer it, put a
Yeah.
big giant berm all around the whole front.
put some palm trees on
the
it,
side, palm trees up, dress it
Yeah.
up. Then when you did need to use it,
put lipstick on a pig.
it'll look good for whatever.
Put a trail on the berm.
In case you change.
I agree.
But you could do a lot of that, and you've got all the fill that's right there that's usable, and every time you take it out, you're actually improving what's around it.
Yeah.
And they need to keep it on site anyway, so it's, you're helping, it's a
If they don't mind looking at that berm instead of the park. Yes,
It's right now just,
yeah, you have to,
depending on whatever goes there, it's, at least for now, it wouldn't cost, other than just moving the dirt to make it all happen.
Okay.
Um,
Got that.
so that dashboard, when you got that up and running, that was wonderful. I thought it was smart how you, and I appreciated it, where you were doing a little in each neighborhood. I mean, you didn't go clean up one whole neighborhood and then move to the next, because everyone had some hope that you were coming to them in the next few days. I mean, you and I mean, just got inundated with calls. When are they coming on my street?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we could message that out to the, say, HOA or Civic Association heads, when you're coming, what streets, and then, you know, people can know what's coming. Because I think the uncertainty of when they're coming is part of the anxiety. So if you know, then you can even be more prepared. I mean, I was so busy helping other people, I didn't get my stuff out for weeks. And, so, it's good to know, I think.
Yeah, it's a balance of being conservative enough, but not too conservative. And then if we get there 2 weeks early, sometimes that sounds like a good thing, but potentially it's not, because
Yeah.
people weren't ready. So understand that, and we
Yeah.
gotta figure out how we narrow in and get accurate information out as soon as we can.
Yeah, and I also don't think we citizens did a good job of separating the material. And can we educate the citizens better about how you want your debris piles organized? And in Gulf Harbors, they were putting them under the power lines that go to their house, so then you couldn't pick it up at all. So we need to educate our citizens on how better to put the debris out.
Jeff?
Yeah.
And that is such a struggle. When you've got a house that gets 5 feet of water in it, everything's out there, it's taking up all the front yard. Anything in the Hudson area, Sea Pines, Leisure Beach, the lots are so small, there was nowhere to put it. It just had to go. So that's hard to do on a major event. I want to say that, you and I were getting phone calls everywhere, and it's like, we knew, and I tell you, you guys did a phenomenal job keeping the balance where there was
Yeah.
always hope that it's
I did
coming.
yell at Branford one day,
Right.
sorry about that.
So you guys did a phenomenal job. I know the stress that we
I
put on
got
you
upset that
that was
day.
just going on was amazing. But I'll tell you, there was one guy that I met out there doing the gravel truck. And at one point, he says, I've worked 57 days in a row. If I gotta work 57 water road, help my people, I'm gonna do it. That dedication just, I think, rang throughout the whole organization. It was such an inspiring moment for me. So watching it all go and what you guys did was just incredible. And I want to say, something got a little bit tricky. You had some, when we finally got those smaller contracts, the private ones, which I will touch on that later on, but those smaller contractors did a phenomenal job. These were all
Yes,
local people,
yeah.
and you kind of gave them flexibility if they wanted to clean their neighborhood
I'd go to
or
them
their friend's
first.
neighborhood, you let them have that flexibility. And the job that was done when they were done, the small guys, was so immaculate that people were like blown away, like it never happened almost, type of thing. That's how phenomenal they were. So I know we're gonna work with FEMA, trying to get some ground rules on how we can do this easier, instead of having that big tier where you get the big contractor, then you get the middle guy who's from somewhere else as well.
Yeah.
And then we get to the little guys where they can't make any money. They did so much better and did such a better job picking. I'm looking forward to changing that. I'm glad FEMA was actually receptive to the conversations we had when we were up there. So hopefully that's gonna keep on moving forward, but again, just what you guys did was absolutely phenomenal.
And I thought when you switched to the nighttime, especially in Gulf Harbors, I don't know if you did that in other areas, but that was a brilliant move.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. That was really good, yeah. I had something else on that, but I can't remember. But I just think you had one of the hardest jobs.
Oh, it is.
No doubt about it. And high-stress job, right? And I was just so proud that our county did it so fast compared to, because, you know, my son lost his house in Pinellas, and we were all cleaned up, and they hadn't even been to his neighborhood yet. So we just did an amazing job.
Well, we did set precedent when we started using the small contractors.
I thought St. Pete Beach or one of them used.
They followed suit with us.
Oh, after us.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we were the first in the state to actually pull the trigger and actually do it, because we had some hesitation on reimbursement and stuff, but as soon as the state said, we're gonna get reimbursed,
I know it was.
everybody started following suit. Pinellas, Hillsborough, Hernando, all started hiring the small contractors.
And I'll go after you, Jen, 'cause I
And-
remembered what I
And
did.
ironically, it was the Pinellas County that got the first approval to go do it. And
Yeah, I
then we
thought so,
jumped
too.
on it and went
Yeah.
for it, and we executed so fast. And thank God we did, because if they had done it first, they might have got our local people to work down there, because always there was a pull to do
Yeah.
that. So your speed in getting that done, getting that work was phenomenal.
And the money stayed in Pasco County.
Yeah, that was good. And you know, I talked to a bunch of those grappling guys, I think maybe the ones from P&J or someone, the big black ones, I don't know who's those ones. The guy said minimum wage is what those guys were getting paid. Minimum wage. At the beginning, it seemed to me that the first trucks that were running were the ones who could get to Maggie Valley as quickly as possible and get back out. And so because they could do more runs and make more money, which was leaving Gulf Harbors out and others further south because it was a longer distance to the drop-off. So I want to make sure we have something in place that it's, you know, how do you ensure that it's not the close ones getting picked up first because they can, you know, make more money?
It's a good point. It's a balance of our prime contractors and them subcontracting and subcontracting, right? You got a bunch of independents out there that are looking out for themselves,
Yeah,
and what that
and I
means
get
is
it,
just
but-
efficiency. So, you know, right now, we're still under contract. I do have some good news around that, though. But going forward, we're looking at putting some tightening on the scope and what that means and how we're directing and doing a neighborhood and doing a clean sweep. So there's a lot we've got to work through to address those types of issues.
I also heard that is it by weight or was it by weight?
Well, right now, it is typically by volume.
Yeah.
Okay? But when we had our small haulers, we did it by mass.
Okay, because I heard sometimes they were picking up the big things and leaving the little things, because they
That's
could fill
correct.
it up faster and get it over there.
Yes.
Yep.
So, you know, capitalism at work, right?
Well, that's it, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So there was a time when myself and the Sea Pines Civic Association president would actually, with the storm coming and the haulers out there, we would actually go take mattresses up, because they were big and bulky, they didn't weigh anything, and just brought them to the haulers to the waste landfill, just to get them out of the way, so they could pick
Yeah.
up more of the stuff that really mattered, that would, they'd make more money on.
I actually saw residents in Gulf Harbors vacuuming their grass with shop vacs to get the glass out. There were a lot of people vacuuming their grass. I know, first time I've ever seen that, so.
There's a couple more things I want to cover, and then I'll turn it back over. Under policy, potential ordinance change. We spent a lot of time figuring out and getting right of entry forms from private roads,
Yeah,
gated communities.
yeah.
There are a couple of counties that have within their ordinances, I think it's Walton and Flagler, Tim's been working with Andy on this, and Tetra Tech, that at the time of that disaster declaration, you potentially could say, under this scenario, those right of entry forms would be superseded by some ordinance, right? That would allow the county teams to go in and collect that. Anyway, this is something we're working on.
Nice.
We'll get the language from these two counties and see if there is an appetite for the commission to look at it, and obviously the county attorney's office. But we spent there's a lot of inefficiency around that, right? Also, small hauler utilization, Commissioner Mariano, you already touched on that with Tetra Tech working with FDEM and FEMA. And then Likewise, we're going to use our consultant Tetra Tech to reach out to the small haulers and do a survey about what they think works, what they think does not work, get their perspective on things, with the understanding we have some, concerns as well. Lastly, on policy, Andy touched on it very early on, the chain of command incident. We have to give our team calm, the solid waste team, and we want to try to maintain 72-hour operational plans. Obviously, if there are safety issues that come up, we're going to pivot, we're going to adjust. But we're going to try to work on longer operational plans that allows our team to really go execute. So, and I know there will be adjustments, but just something we're working on. As far as efficiencies, we talked about us being out front early. Phillips and Jordan right now is having multiple tandem lightning loaders, is what they call them, built. They are going to be housed at the 4G ranch. They may not be here in time for if we had a June storm, but certainly by the end of summer, P&J is going to have multiple pieces of equipment ready to deploy out of Pasco County. I think that's a great partnership. They've done a good job.
What about employees to
Right,
work there?
right. Well, that they
That's
have.
the tough thing.
Yeah.
They'll just pull them from everywhere?
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think that'll be the problem. It does take a long time to get these very efficient equipment deployed and in place. They understood when we met with them after the storm, we did a lessons learned. And we told them, we said, look, this is where we think you could do better. And I think they're listening and they're reacting and they're investing. So that's a good message from them.
Commissioner,
Yeah, one thing that was going on, Phillips and Jordan did a good job, but they would get some of our local haulers that were within Pasco County and send them to Pinellas County. So we lost some of them because they were not gonna make that trip. They couldn't make enough money by going so far to try to pick up. So those local haulers we have within the county, we need to keep them close. They'll get us picked up and they'll be probably willing to go further later in the process. But the fact of it is, trying to use them first when you got all this debris around, locally, it's hard to send them into another county.
Right.
And they have to drive so far. And that was happening through Phillips and Jordan. So, because I knew some local haulers that didn't join in because they tried it for a day and they were not making any money. So,
Okay, thank you for the feedback.
yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
So in that small hauler issue with being paid under that tier system, this is something I really want to take a look at trying to change if we
Yeah,
can.
just kind of-
And maybe it's what we talked about before, is the amount of weight we get every day, using those numbers to kind of compare and not have to do all the extra monitoring and everything else that goes involved. You've got some of the streets, like at Leisure Beach, Fifth Aisle, you can go out there, but those telephone lines are so low that you can't
should
use
be
that
underground.
stuff. You need the small guys to be able to win there, so I hope as you kind of look at that and go through it, and I'm sure that would come to some of your feedback, but those big tandems are great for, like Gulf Harbor, you got big streets down there. These other small streets, I don't think they work so well.
Right.
So you need, I think, as you look and you talk, I think you get that feedback, and that maybe just help you pivot a little bit to where to go. And then I gotta tell you, with all the stuff you guys had to deal between where you can send people, where they can't go, et cetera, super, super tough job, and you guys were, I know, stressed to the max, but you really kept your composure great and just kept on moving things forward, getting things done. It was awesome to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The last thing is, this is more forward thinking, but, potential interlocal coordination. And I'm, thinking Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough potentially. How can we maybe do a regional solicitation so we don't get into this fight on pricing, right?
Yeah, and they started to do that, right, Mike? You guys started meeting. Also, I got calls from Pinellas County asking if we had, actually, I think it was from lobbyists, anyway, debris sites that other counties could use in our county. And And so, did you get any calls from Pinellas?
did.
Because they didn't have a place to put their stuff.
I think we said no.
Yes, you did, yeah. Well, yeah, I said no too. But, you know, there is that site on Trinity Boulevard, that it's Pinellas County utility site, that is just sitting there empty, and I wonder if we couldn't talk to Pinellas about using it if we needed something in that area. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep, another one.
Yeah, it's a great, there's no houses around it, it's high and dry. So, potential future site if we need something down there. It's far for Pinellas County to take stuff there. They end up using,
Keystone site
they use the
that
Brian
Yeah, right there.
Dairy Farm site.
Keystone Road.
Yeah, Keystone and East Lake, yeah.
I'm done.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Building construction services, another, you guys are still at it. I still have my open permit. A few more weeks, I think.
Before I jump into BCS, I just want to take a second to recognize a team that isn't here today, but was in at least 2 slides and helped probably 4 or 5 other departments, and that's the code compliance department. They were a great kind of multi-role fighter, as I've kind of said over and over again, from helping out with shelters to pods. They were debris monitors. They did damage assessment with our teams. So if there wasn't a thing that we asked of code compliance that they weren't more than willing to and happy to do, worked a ton of overtime and kind of went wherever, whenever. So I think they just deserve a special shout out here, and it's great to have a team like that inside the county to kind of help backfill when we need that. So.
Nice.
So by the numbers, we've talked a lot about the experience. What it means to the individual homeowner here is, after the 2 storms, we had over 19,000 damaged structures, whether that was between flood or other hurricane damage, whether structural damage, roof damage. We did see over 13,000 that we at least initially believed were flooded. As a result of that, we also did 29,000 substantial damage evaluation inspections. I'll get into this in the next 2 slides here on the substantial damage evaluation, but there are 2 different damage assessment tasks that we're charged with doing in BCS. One is preliminary damage assessment, or that street level, where's the damage, how bad is it, give us the estimates, because as fast as we get the damage numbers to FEMA, that's how fast we can turn on public assistance. And then public assistance is kind of what funds a lot of all the operations we just heard about. Without those dollars, we would be spending a lot of money out of pocket first before we can do some of those things. So we always try to make sure that we can help get damage assessment done as fast as possible. The substantial damage evaluation, however, is an evaluation that we have to do to be compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program under FEMA, to making sure that structures that are damaged by peril of flood or otherwise in a flood zone, we're evaluating whether or not they can be rebuilt, demoed, or elevated under the 50% rule, 49% in Pasco County. As a result of those inspections, we did over 13,000 direct mail pieces in at least 3 different mailing campaigns. We did stand up a dedicated storm line, which is different than our regular permitting line. That was specifically if you got a letter and you needed specific resources. One of our jobs was to we created a whole wing of BCS that did nothing but help our folks that were affected by storm. To date, we have over 10,000 permit applications that have been processed. The great news is there's over 4,300 of those people have already closed out their permits, they're done with their work, they're restored, and hopefully getting back to whatever normalcy looks like now post these both disasters. 57 of those 10,000 are in progress, so they've got their permits, they're ready to go. And we're only kind of hanging around about 400 that are processing. One of the things that we were challenged with in the aftermath of the storm was the volume was so great, and we're used to processing about 60,000 permits a year, but the volume was so great within the first 2 months. It was about 9,000 permits in that first 2 months, and our permitting timelines jumped up to almost 2 weeks. And we were challenged to how do we work on that? How do we bring those down? And I'll talk briefly in another slide about some of the great ideas that came together, but certainly IT and creating a substantial damage questionnaire, which significantly helped take our permitting timeline from 14 days down to about 4 days for a storm damage permit. 344 residential demolition permits. I didn't believe that number at first when I saw it last week, but it seems like we've had 344 demo permits go through. Not funded by us, just people choosing to do the demo and start over. We do see a lot of those, I don't have a specific number, but are being funded through increased costs of compliance under an FIP. So we have a lot of follow-up compliance letters that are sent out to that end. The big number on the board is $2.6 million in waived fees. So that if your home was damaged in a storm, even till this day, we're not charging you a building permit fee to go through and make sure that your structure is safe. And by our valuation, over $350 million worth of building repairs have been completed to date in Pasco County as a result of Hurricane Helene and Milton.
So you're getting that number when someone closes out the permit, like you don't have mine in there, I would guess?
Correct.
Okay. So
Well,
that'll add, go a lot, increase a lot.
And we also get it for commercial, because that's inclusive of commercial numbers. So we have commercial permits. We do valuations based off of, or permit fees based off of valuation, and we didn't change the model because we weren't changing the fees. I think this map is really telling as to kind of where the damage is. Internally, I call it the masquerade mask, because you can see it was very heavily on the west side, but even still on the east side, and particularly if you overlaid the flood map that Barrett had earlier, you can see where a lot of that damage that we're seeing was. And it was very much the tale of two storms. West side, it was easy to do substantial damage evaluation. You go down one block and you go up the other. East side, you couldn't, right? Half the neighborhoods you couldn't get to, and then you had acres apart, many sites. So very different approaches to be able to tackle both east and west. We are still doing some evaluations out east, but we're doing that with our team now. So a couple things that we, I think, worked well, was rapid damage assessment. I spoke briefly about that. That early shout out to code allowed us to do 110 teams to do damage assessment. We changed the model in which we did that over previous years, where we used to just have folks call in, we would respond to that dispatch request, go look at that one structure. Well, instead, we kind of adopted a grid-based structure. We go out, look at every property in a damaged area, to quickly get a windshield assessment of the damage, and that helps us ramp the numbers up very quickly. One of the things that was really great for us was we had a tool called Forerunner kind of built out already prior to the storm, which we were using for elevation certificates. We were able to quickly turn that on and use the substantial damage evaluation tool that was a modification of the FEMA tool, which allowed us to move a heck of a lot faster on the SDE evaluation. So our neighbors to the south are still working through FEMA paper forms, and we're done essentially with all the determinations that we're going to be doing. It's been a huge help, and we changed the model from waiting and creating a very detailed determination model to what I call we have a level of consistency on the damage determination that we're comfortable with, but we're going to make it very easy for the homeowner or the property owner to appeal that number if they wanted to. So making that time frame very short eliminates a lot of backlog on the other end, and it allows folks to get their permits so much quicker because we're not waiting for a perfect damage determination number. But GIS, Forerunner, those two tools made that absolutely happen. I talked about the SIP questionnaire very briefly. Todd's team, particularly Jeremy and Joe, worked with Savin in BCS to create that 17-page questionnaire that really, if you didn't know what you were doing, you just knew you had damage, you would go to the third floor, somebody would walk you through the questionnaire. At the end of that, you had an estimate of what the damage to your property was that we were comfortable with and that FEMA would accept. One of the improvements for next year is we think we can do that a heck of a lot better actually at somebody's structure, because we had a lot of people that would come, they didn't know what their floor plan looked like, they didn't have pictures, they weren't ready for this, that, or the other thing. So we think after we do their substantial damage evaluation, we set up a time to come back and say, hey, if you would like us to do the questionnaire and the estimate, we'll do that with you here, and that will make the permitting process go
That
so
helped
much
me
faster.
immensely. That's how I did mine.
Yeah.
I'll say, I think everyone's gonna be more educated on all this stuff. Take the photos, take the videos, that, you know, we know more what to do now.
The 3 permanent pop-up sites were huge, I think. You know, people not only saw us out in the community, they came to us, we were a resource. We were able to do not only some of the waiver signing there, but also get quick information and connect folks with the different agencies they needed to connect with. And oftentimes our permitting sites acted as an informational center. Where's the DRC at? Where's the closest comfort station if they didn't know where that was? And I think that was a really good thing, not only for our department, but for the county as a whole. Big win for us here, though, was doubling the workforce through the 1206 program with Tidal Basin. We would not be able to get through the permitting process, the permitting center, without being able to double that workforce size for that 180-day time frame. One of our learnings is we want to make sure that we have our agreements in place, similar to what Kevin just talked about, same model. Make sure that we're not doing that through the state. We kind of control our own destiny. We can test those processes and make sure our vendor knows exactly what our process is going to be, and we can move that much more faster. We did 12 community town halls, so I don't think there wasn't anything that Commissioner asked if they go speak to this association that we said no to, and we enjoyed doing that, and I think that really helped kind of change a lot of hearts and minds when we were able to just talk one-on-one with folks about what our processes were.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Just touch on that slide, if you could go back to it. JP, I tell you what, the way you controlled everything was phenomenal. You always had a steady base in your tone, there was never any excitement. How you do it, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Not my genetic
Yeah,
setup.
same.
But literally, what you did going through everything was phenomenal. The pop-up sites were great. There was one scene that we had, a very hot guy who was a contractor, lived in a mobile, was doing some of the site prep on just saving his house and some neighbors. And he was so hot, so frustrated, when he walked away, I grabbed him, talked to him, and then you and so on came, and we looked at like 3 homes in an area, and put them to ease to say, you're gonna be okay, we're gonna get you through the process, here's how you go through it. What you did then and all the way through to people as well was phenomenal. I will say, sometimes we had people that would have their home protected. It looked like 3 feet of water outside, and when you get, frankly, Tidal Basin driving by saying, all right, 3 feet of water, made an assumption. It was inaccurate, it caused a lot of grief. So if they protected it, there's a couple that I remember, it looked like 3 feet of water, but with protection, only like 2 inches get in the house, from pictures shown, et cetera. So I'd like to see us to try to work that, because what was happening was you'd have a super high number for what the substantial damage estimate was. And in certain situations, it was all less. And I think it took a lot of your stress from your staff to try to get through it. And if they didn't take appropriate pictures to show it, it just caused a lot of issues. I'm glad you went out there early. I think it was good. But I think the Tidal Basin setup caused you a lot of grief. I'm glad it worked out better later. But I think if we can really take a look at how we want to do that for the future, I think we make some improvements.
How could you do the drive-bys any quicker if they didn't do it like that? I mean, people weren't home to ask, so.
So I want to be clear, we don't do a drive-by on the substantial damage evaluation. It is a walk.
Tidal Basin went.
Yeah,
down
and our
streets.
team as well. We kind of both ran teams, but it's a walk the street and knock on the door
Well,
if
that's what
somebody's
I mean,
home.
yeah.
We'll do it. Otherwise, to your point, they would have to make an assessment based on what they could visually see
Yeah.
if they weren't allowed in the home. We think the questionnaire piece kind of exactly addresses that. Now that we're using Forerunner tool to do the mailings, we can, after the evaluation is done, our floodplain manager will look at it, go, yeah, we agree with that, with those numbers, or tweak something, submit the letter, and in that letter have if you'd like for us to come out and do a substantial damage questionnaire, set up a specific time so they know that they're gonna be there, be available, come out. We'll go through that whole process, and then you're done with your substantial damage process, because we'll issue a floodplain development permit, which will then prevent them from having to pull OIC permits. And I'm sort of getting ahead of myself a little bit, but preventing from owner as contractor. So you don't have to pull it. You could hire your AC contractor, your roof contractor, a structural person if you wanted to. You don't have to pull one master permit as owner, as a contractor, and do all that work. You're just gonna get a floodplain number that will reference all those permits. So the permitting will happen much faster.
And I want to say, you're taking the third floor, setting it all up, we can walk in, was a great thing. And I think one of the things that we had done was, as you said, the waive of the permit fees. So many times when people worried about, what's the county trying to do to me? It made it so easy to justify, like, we're not trying to make money from you, we're just trying to go through the process to get reimbursed from FEMA. It made it a lot more believable and a lot more, I think, confidence in what we're doing every step of the way. So I think it was very good how you did it, how you pushed it across, and how you set it up. So for a very tough situation, again, it's a guy who's just had so much on his head. You did a great job all the way through.
Thank you.
I actually was at my house at my Aristida house when tidal basin came through. And I believe I was the only person in Aristida that had water in the house. Because we're in the back by the river. So, but I got a chance to talk to them. Nice guys.
So I'll be brief because I know we're quickly running out of time here. Key lesson here was this storm season, FEMA changed the approach.
Yes.
We would just do substantial damage when you came in for a permit. Rather this year, they said, you're gonna go look at every structure, and by the way, we're gonna pay for it. So that's why we had to do what we did and do that on the fly. I mentioned the pre-procurement and training of the vendors, the tidal basin, just to do everything we just discussed. Great learning here, a screen doesn't replace great employees. You can do all of this stuff electronically if you want, and if you think you can. But by and large, most people we found would rather talk to somebody. They have questions. They want to be helped through it. Many of our residents are on the digital divide, so they either don't have a computer. And I wrote your quote down, Commissioner. It says the phone is their enemy, and I hadn't really thought about that. But it's particularly our senior population being victim to so many phone scams, they probably don't want to deal with anything dealing with the computer, and that hadn't occurred to me. But we did see that, particularly our third floor, was a lot of folks who just didn't want to mess with the computer or do any of that stuff. They wanted somebody else to
It was very
help them.
stressful, like, they were actually having medical issues due to just feeling overwhelmed of how to navigate that. So them talking to a person was just, they got all their questions answered, they're like, here, you know, and I just really appreciate you guys doing that, like, from the bottom of my heart, so.
We talked about substantial damage evaluation needs to happen faster. It was about a 45-day lag from the storm before we actually really started doing that because of the mission request and contracting and then figuring out how that's all going to work. That delay is all but gone now as a result of the new processes going forward.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
And that is such an important thing, because when you get your home literally saturated with drywall, most uniform, if you don't get it out, if you don't get the power back on, that is such a critical thing for the speed to be done. So kudos for that, for trying to find a way to make that work. I know it's not easy with the federal regulations to make it all work, but I appreciate your working at that real hard. And again, you were under tremendous pressure to get everything in. So that third floor, I'll just touch on it one more time as you mentioned it. Literally, when you open up the first day, Steiner and I had like 3 people, we went upstairs, they walked it through, and I think, you know, Sonia's always involved in that permitting stuff, but the experience up there got so great that she was able to set people up, bring them up and go, and sometimes even they were able to just go on their own and get it done. So what they did up there was phenomenal.
Okay.
All right, keep going, because County Administrator, we're not going to get done till about 12:30, I can see.
I think the next slide that Andy has, you've already got it in advance, so he's only got 2 slides left, and then we'll be done unless there's any other board discussion.
Well, I don't think JP's done yet.
I'm going to skip
He's
to
got
the
2
end.
slides.
How about that? Let's get to the last one. We're going to make the SDE process faster. We're going to instantly generate your flood letters. We're not waiting for the state, and we've added 8 additional staff. And we've already, just by way of Senate Bill 180, which I know I saw on the table here, we're doing nearly all of the things that are already in that statute. The only thing we haven't done yet is the post-disaster permitting guide, which we'll be working on. And the good news that comes out of that is the cumulative damage calculation is no longer illegal statutorily, so if the governor signs it, which will make our job easier But we probably need to make some changes to the ordinance to make sure that gets done cleanly, so.
Can you explain a little bit?
The Senate Bill 180 gets rid of the cumulative damage calculation.
Oh, so we won't have that anymore?
Correct.
So every county will, like, one city is 5 years, they won't have that
Yep.
anymore? So the whole state will be uniform?
Yeah, so it would basically, we would look at every permit, is that over 49% or not? So every damage event, is it
Okay.
over 49%?
So if you're remodeling your home and you're doing 25% of the value and a hurricane hits, are they still gonna add those two together?
No, basically the cumulative, at least without the RLS being done yet, and so I'm gonna check. The cumulative calculation no longer exists.
Okay. That's good to know.
Great.
But we will bring that back into some sort of ordinance language.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I just have it's an overall question, and I know I asked during the storm, but I'd love to see it broken down by department. In a case of emergency, exactly what department is doing what alternate job? Like I heard Parks and Rec, they're running the pods and comfort stations. What is Human
Code.
Resources doing? What are all departments doing during the storm?
I could generate that list.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, let's go on to Helene and Milton, Public
I'll
Assistance.
do it real quick.
All right.
Yeah, this was, you received an email, a one-pager yesterday from me. This is.
Did that come from, who?
It came from me.
I don't have it. I looked for it. So it's under Carbala?
Yes, should be.
I'll look again.
So basically, our PA reimbursement, it's broken down into categories, and I'll hit the major categories that we usually use, which is Cat A, of course, which is our debris. Cat B is our emergency protective measures. That's our overtime, regular pay, equipment and hours used, materials, contracts and mutual aid, or donated resources to offset a non-federal cost of emergency work. We use Cat C, road and bridge. We use Cat E a lot, buildings and equipment. Cat F, utilities. Cat G, parks and rec. That is going to be going away most likely with FEMA. They don't believe that that's considered quote-unquote critical infrastructure. We're still waiting on the final rulings to come down from FEMA, but that's one of the areas that is most likely might go away. And then Cat Z, which is our administrative costs. That is basically us hiring Tetra Tech, Tidal Basin. That's the administrative costs, and we only get back 5% on that. So if it's $120,000, we get back 5% on reimbursement on that. Going to the next slide. PA reimbursement percentages for Helene and Milton. For the first 90 days of both storms, it was 100% reimbursable, and I'll get to that money amount here in a minute. We were very quick to react. In fact, we were the first in the state to react to it and apply for reimbursement. And then after 90 days, it breaks down to a 75-25 split, where FEMA reimburses on 75 and the county is responsible for that 25. There are instances, and we're still waiting to see with the state, that if they are gonna do a cost share with us. So that in turn will be FEMA pays 75, the state pays 12 and a half, and then we're responsible for that last 12 and a half on our cost. Also our CDBG-DR funds, for Cats 3C through G, they might be eligible as matches for any of the projects that we do through HMGP or any of the other things that we do. Like I said, Cat Z is limited to 5% of the total project cost, and it's on all eligible administrative activities. So going to the money slide, our estimated cost for Helene was about $5.8 million. We have not received any reimbursements yet on that. We are expecting.
What? You haven't received any reimbursements?
Not on that one yet.
Okay.
And that was 1.3 million we're expected to receive soon. But when FEMA put the hold on any monies being dispersed, that's where it really got us. And you can see it's broken down into the categories for this amount. The biggest amount was 2.9 million for, Cat G, which was our utilities, I believe. I always get them confused.
G says parks, recreational, and other.
Okay. And then Cat Z, which is our tidal basin, Tetra Tech.
Oh, that may be something.
Cat B was our overtime cost. Cat E, was the, now I gotta go back and look at it.
Is this not?
Yeah, thank you.
Facilities.
Cat E is buildings and equipment. And Cat F was, public utilities. So we're still waiting on the monies to come in. We keep checking with FEMA, they keep saying it'll be here any day, but we're still waiting on it. Going into Milton, it was a much costlier storm. We estimated total
Amazing.
cost of 66.7 million. Our big money taker on that one was Cat A for debris, because we rolled both Helene into Milton and claimed it all under Milton for debris pickup.
Okay.
So that's about 47.9 million. And then our Cat B, about 8.2 million. Majority of it, that is overtime, a big chunk of that. Cat C, which is road and bridge, it's about 2.2 million. And then Cat E, which was buildings and maintenance facilities, that's about 4.2 million. Cat F was about 705, and then Cat G was 1.8, and then Cat Z was about 1.5, and those are our bigger contracts, because with Milton, we had Tetra Tech, we had Tidal Basin, both in here working with us. So overall, where our projects look, for Helene, we had a total of 41 small projects and 2 large projects, like I said, an estimated cost of 5.8. And as we saw on the previous slide, it breaks it down into the amount. And then with Milton, we have a total of 102 small projects, 4 large projects at that $66.7 million. We have gotten some reimbursement on Milton already. I think it's about 23 million, I believe.
Closer to 28, I think. Some of that
28?
was, most of that was the solid waste.
But you need to remember that these numbers are not complete numbers yet. We are still doing projects and summary sheets and everything with Tetra Tech. We are still submitting projects, so expect these numbers to actually go up a little bit more until we get finalized numbers.
All right, question, have we paid all our subcontractors, or do we have to wait to reimbursement before we pay them?
Yep, and then we wait for reimbursement off of that.
We
So
don't
we
pay.
paid
we
our,
don't-
No, we paid.
Yes, that's what I thought.
J
Okay.
and all them?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So we took this all out of our reserves?
It's all, that's why you have reserves, yes.
Okay.
So any questions on the reimbursement?
Let's send this sheet to our legislators, and they want to know why we have.
We have a one-pager, we can certainly forward
Yeah.
that. Where's Ralph?
Are you skipping all these?
Yeah, I'm not gonna go through.
So
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on my FEMA check for my house. I mean, I'm fortunate that I could, do my remodeling and not wait, but I know lots of people who are sitting there not being able to fix their house because they haven't got their check yet. So,
And that's because of that hold that they had put in place.
well, what's the plan up there? I mean,
I don't know, I'll call Kevin.
people don't have reserves. I mean, do we want to try and find out how many of our residents still haven't received their FEMA check? Because I'd be interested to know. I don't know how we get the information, but
Maybe Bill or Alex
it's
is
not
out this
okay.
evening.
I will call the state and inquire with them,
Yeah.
and if they have an answer for me, I'll get it back to you.
I watched that 60 Minutes Sunday where people in Russia and China are getting people's FEMA checks, and I told Trey, maybe someone in China has our FEMA check. Is there, it's since September. It's crazy. I'm getting to the next hurricane, and I haven't gotten my check yet. And we were approved in October. So,
Madam Chair?
yeah.
At NACO, we had a county roundtable talking, I think it's some storms probably 7-8 years ago.
Yep.
Counties haven't been reimbursed yet.
Yeah, that's not gonna fly. FEMA's gotta get out. I saw something, and FEMA's under Homeland Security, and it's not functioning well under Homeland Security. It needs to go back to being its own standalone, and then maybe it'll work better,
Did you have something, Ralph? No?
but I'd be interested to know how quickly residents get reimbursed.
Okay.
I mean, if we're participating in the flood insurance plan,
Sure,
it's gotta work.
right. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
Mike, I'd just like to say, this is a great idea.
Yeah,
It was
I
great to
love
be
it.
able to get everybody's story after all the stress is done and whatever, and just listen to what's going on and what's coming up in the future, so I think it's a brilliant idea to do this, so thank you. for
Well,
looking
well,
out.
thank you, and I appreciate the board's engagement and interest on this. You know, as we, you know, part of this is just to convey to you and to the public and to ensure you that we are ready. We're battle hardened, and the team is ready for the next step. And of course, as we continue to go on, Andy, you had mentioned the CDBG DR money. You should have been notified this morning that our action plan is now posted. We talked about that with you individually last week. So take a look, encourage the public to comment. There's all kinds of great ideas out there on how we can, you know, have a better future, really is what the intent is. And I just want to thank the team members and that put this presentation together and all the hard work that your folks have done, both to help us recover from the past storms, but respond and be ready for new storms. So thank you, ma'am.
I have one more question, and I think I saw it in someone's notes, and I don't know if it's to Andy or who it's to, but you know how we asked Duke to turn off the power
Yes,
versus Tico with Pacucci turning off their own power?
yes.
And we need to make sure Duke turns off the power and we don't go, because if they turn off the power, it's a different process, right?
Yeah, and I want to relook at that. I've mentioned to the team the other day that I want to look at, we had that electrical power waiver, and there's a number of other things, but I think there's some communication things we can do with folks, and some lessons learned in other counties to, obviously, safety is the number one thing, and we know that when we turn power on in areas, we saw houses
Yeah.
catch fire, but how far do we want to go in that? So we want to huddle and have some more discussions on that over the next month or so.
If you were, you know, for those that weren't there, our tri-county meeting, I think it was Pinellas County mentioned that when they turned the power on, the house burned.
Yeah,
Wow.
and we did, you know, and you know, that waiver that we did come up with actually has kind of spread across the state.
Oh.
We have managed to digitize it, so if we were to move that direction again, you know, it could go a lot faster, but yeah, we're still sorting through that one a little bit.
Are you aware if there's any lawsuits of a homeowner who turned on their power and their house burned down? Are they
Not that I
blaming
know of.
the power companies?
I haven't heard anything like
Be it,
that.
I don't know if it'd be an insurance company versus a,
Can I say one last thing?
yes, of course.
I just want to say, between the pop-up permitting sites, the small haul debris, and everything that we've done so much, so fast, so quick, we are definitely, Pasco County is definitely the leader I must say, when it comes to disasters. There's no way to really
Yay.
No better way to say it.
But we are extremely recognized with FDM, we're extremely recognized with other communities around us, the surrounding counties, for the innovative ideas that we come up with, and we should be very, very proud of ourselves.
So NACO put together, sorry, Jack, NACO put together a task force on disaster recovery. And, you know, I thought of raising my hand for it. I don't know if you did, Jack, but my hands are too full. But I think we have so much that we could share with the rest of the country. And I am going to say, when I toured on the NACO Board of Directors meeting, the California wildfire area in Napa, and it's our current NACO president, one of the people that he said you should have on contract besides the disaster pickup companies is the estimators. He recommended that you should have contracts with the adjusters. So that's something we were going to talk about at NACO. Okay, go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say, maybe not.
I'm going to send this to
Maybe
him.
not great disaster, maybe disaster recovery.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. But I'd like to add just one thing that I think we could do, and it didn't happen this year,
Did we
but
get this?
I think you need to make sure that in the room, that we have all the electric companies in the room. They need to be,
Yeah.
they were such a key part, especially with the Kuchi, was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I think they need to be in the room as we go forward, we're gonna find.
We
that space to
tried,
make it
we
happen.
do,
We have a spot for 'em.
activate, we put the invites out.
Hey, I just came up with a new hashtag after you said that.
Oh, God.
Hashtag Pasco proactive, hashtag Pasco proactive and reactive for storms.
There you go.
Yeah, I think, wow, 12:07. Good job.
Thank
Okay.
you, everybody.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Grass clippings, trash, oils, and pet waste wash into gutters and stormwater care.